Chapter 897. After leaving the kingdom of Zu, Su Yun headed towards the west of the ultimate martial world alone, searching for the whereabouts of the Sword Ancestor's soul. Previously, the Sword Ancestor had warned him not to do this without sufficient strength. But now that Su Yun had obtained the inheritance of the great demons of the True Devil sect, and possessed the protection of the Devil Veins, the Devil Eagle, and the Devil's Soul, his strength was no longer the same as before, and he believed that it was enough to deal with any situation. He had originally wanted to go to the Wanhua realm to ask the Sword Ancestor and take a look at the situation there. Unexpectedly, after entering the Wanhua realm, he also encountered the same treatment as when he first entered the True Devil realm. Sealed realm. The Wanhua realm was also sealed. Su Yun felt that it was very strange. The True Devil realm was sealed to contend against the immortal-seeking sect. Why was the Wanhua realm sealed? These strange things seemed to indicate something. He felt like something was going to happen. After weighing it over and over again, Su Yun decided to head to the ultimate martial sacred plane and let the Master Subhoodie bring his students to hide for a while. Right now, many of the realms in the myriad heavens were doing some sort of measure, which was probably a sign that something big was about to happen. Su Yun's movements were very fast. The kingdom of Purple Moon and the immortal-seeking sect could only wait. If Empress Dowager Lu did not betray him and did everything according to what he said, then the enmity between the heaven-knocking pavilion and the immortal-seeking sect would be formed. Su Yun did not know what kind of immortal sect the heaven-knocking pavilion was, but it should not be any weaker than the seeking immortal sect, right? One had to know that the immortal-seeking sect was just a half-immortal sect. Although it was a godlike existence in a myriad heavens realm, it should be considered to be weak in the immortal world. If the heaven-knocking pavilion hated the immortal-seeking sect because of this matter, then they only needed to add a little more fuel to the fire, and the immortal-seeking sect would no longer be a threat to the True Devil sect. Of course, there were always accidents. Once the instigation wasn't done well, it would backfire on itself. One day later, Su Yun arrived at the extreme west side of the ultimate martial world, the Chasing Moon domain. He did not even stop. He did not even go to Beiyang, much less visit Hu Qianmei and Huairou Muyu. The current situation was not optimistic, and solving everything was the first choice. There would be plenty of time to meet in the future. The Chaser Moon domain was an undeveloped domain in the ultimate martial world, and was one of the few chaotic domains. There were all kinds of spirit cultivators in this domain. There were the lowest level spirit novice disciple, and also the strongest spirit master and sky spirit master. As for the spirit emperor, it was extremely rare for him to walk around in the ultimate martial world's territory. These existences were mostly from the great powers in the myriad heavens realm, and spirit sage like Su Yun was already a legendary figure. He leaped 1,000 miles and stepped into the moon-chasing domain. It was currently midnight, and the world was dusky. Only a few cities within the domain still had light. Su Yun flew at a low altitude, casually found a town, and landed. Back then, he had heard the Sword Ancestor talk about the rough location of the shattered soul and a method to find it. However, after searching the moon-chasing domain, he still had to find the specific location. The moon-chasing domain was not big. To the south was the soulless sea, and to the north was the giant valley, which was mysterious and unfathomable. It was said that there were ancient giants living in the valley, and all of them possessed divine strength and terrifying strength. They had copper skin and iron bones, like pillars of the heavens, and spirit cultivators would be swallowed alive if they met them, without any strength to fight back. The east and west sides were the main roads, so they shouldn't exist. Then, if he was not in the soulless sea, he must be in the giant valley. These two places were not small either, so Su Yun could only obtain some information from the spirit cultivatoress who had been entrenched in the moon-chasing domain for a long time. He roughly walked around and discovered that most of the spirit cultivatoress would gather at a place called Fian Auction House, so he immediately approached. The auction house was located in the center of the town, and there were all sorts of shops around it. Some sold equipment, some sold medicinal pills, and there were even a large number of taverns and inns. Although this was only a small town, the surrounding cities were not as bustling and lively as this place. There was a sea of people here, and it was very noisy. Su Yin landed in the city, and also headed towards the auction house. It was not a famous auction house, but it was an extremely convenient auction house. It was said that the owner of the auction house had communicated with the various famous auction houses, and the most basic thing to open an auction house was to have a legacy magic treasure that was specially used to circulate goods. This kind of legacy magic treasure was different from a usual legacy magic treasure. It was a magic treasure that was specially used to transfer items and could only transfer small items. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, most of the pills and small treasures in the auction house were circulated through this. But Su Yun was curious as to why there were so many spirit cultivators gathered here. However, after walking around the auction house, Su Yun finally understood. This town was the closest supply ground to the Soulless Sea and the Giant Valley. Most of the spirit cultivator here were people who were heading to the Giant Valley to search for treasures. It was said that their companions had died in the Giant Valley. Of course, there were also many people who were missing arms and legs every day. Su Yun did not care about the Giant Valley. He only cared about the location of the other soul of the Sword Ancestor. Su Yun ran to the tavern beside the auction house and asked for a pot of wine. He started to drink and listen to the discussions of these people. Almost everyone in the tavern was talking about the Giant Valley, and Su Yun felt that it was quite fresh. "Hey, brother, why did you ask me to come all the way to such a desolate place? Didn't you say you could get rich? What kind of wealth could there be here? Could it be that there are some gem mines or some rare medicinal herbs around here?" "Brother, even if there are gem mines and rare medicinal herbs, it's not your turn to take them. Those powerful spirit cultivators have already occupied them, so it's not our turn to take them. Then why the hell are we still getting rich?" AI, who told you that you have to rely on these things to get rich? Then what? Shit, Poochie. Hearing that, Su Yun couldn't help but spit out the wine in his mouth. Shit, are you *king drunk? Who the hell is joking with you? If you want to get rich, you have to rely on shit. But it's not ordinary shit. Could it be that it's the shit of immortals and gods? You're *king sick. You're the one who's sick. Can you listen to what I have to say? All right. Say it. I really want to know whose shit can make me rich. Yeah, that's not ordinary shit. It's the shit of the ancient giants in the Giant Valley. Oh, the giants' shit. That's right. The world was big and full of strange things. Anything could happen in this world. Anything could exist. The giant's poop was not ordinary poop. It was said that it had great medicinal value. Many strange pills were refined from it, and they were all extremely rare and expensive pills. The consumption of giant's poop was extremely high, and it had already reached a price of 1 million cultivation coins per gene. If we were to enter the valley and soak in it, it would be impossible for us to do so. Then we won't have to worry about food and clothing in the future. I'll go, but it is said that the giants in the Giant Valley only poop once a year. It's not a lot. We have to try our luck this time. I heard that the giants in the Giant Valley are all very strong and have terrifying strength. There are only 2 of us. Are we looking for shit or seeking death? Listen to me. Nothing will happen. If we're smart, we'll be looking for shit. If we're not smart, we'll be looking for death. But if this gets out, how can I survive in the future? You're just a *king poor ghost. You can't even stand on your own 2 feet. Without money, you're nothing. Let me ask you, are you going or not? All right. I'll go. The man drank a mouthful of wine. He felt that he could not digest what he had heard today. It was not only him. Even Su Yun, who was at the next table, was petrified. He looked at the 2 of them in a daze. He thought that he had heard wrongly. Looking for shit. Was there such a strange thing in the world? There were all sorts of strange things in the world. But thinking about it, it was reasonable. Some people could even sell their own character for money. Compared to that, looking for shit was much more noble. Hey, don't look so dejected. Let me tell you, the Giant Valley does not only have the giant shit. There are other things too. Oh, the man was excited. He asked, what else? He looked left and right. Then he lowered his voice. It is said that there is an incredible treasure. Treasure? The man exclaimed. Keep your voice down. Idiot. I'm I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. What kind of treasure is it about? Whose treasure is it? What is it? Where's the treasure? The questions poured out like beans being sprinkled on the ground. How the F***ck would I know? I don't have that treasure. Didn't I come here? I was just about to look for it. Just the two of us. No, I even found some helpers. Most of the people here are here for the treasure. Who would like to look for the giant shit every day? Furthermore, compared to the treasure, the shit is real shit. Oh. So that's how it is. Drink. When everyone is here, we will enter the valley. This time, follow Big Brother and work hard. I won't treat you unfairly. Thank you, Big Brother. Come, Big Brother, let me toast you. Huh. The two of them started to drink. Hearing that, Su Yun retracted his gaze. Could the treasure of the giant valley be the location of the Sword Ancestor's soul? He remembered that when the Sword Ancestor's soul descended into the Wanhua realm, it caused a storm of sword chi, causing the Wanhua realm to be in chaos. Could it be that the Sword Ancestor's soul did not cause any commotion? Or could it be that he was also imprisoned? What kind of power did this Sword Ancestor's soul contain? Thinking about it, Su Yun started to look forward to it. Right now, it was better to find out the exact location of the treasure. If it was the Sword Ancestor's soul, he would immediately take it away and head to the Wanhua realm to fuse the two souls together. This way, he would at least be able to give the Sword Ancestor the ability to protect himself. Chapter 898. The tavern's business was booming. Even though it was midnight, it was still packed with people and there were no empty seats. Gotcha. At this moment, a series of sounds of armor colliding came from outside the tavern. Following that, a large number of people wearing armor and carrying long swords walked in. Waiter, clear 10 tables for me. Also, bring out your best dishes and wine for me. The leader was a burly man who was shouting at the busy waiter. The burly man was wearing an extremely heavy armor. Other than his head, his entire body was wrapped tightly. Beside him was a young master in a yellow robe. The young master had a female cultivator in one hand and a sword in the other. His face was pale, his eyes were dim, and the aura around his body was extremely weak. He looked like a person who was already terminally ill. Su Yun glanced at the young master and realized that the blood in his body was no longer flowing. His heart was also very weak. What was going on? If it was an ordinary person, they would have died long ago, right? Seeing so many people coming, the waiter immediately put down what he was doing and ran over. Hey, my lords, I'm really sorry. As you can see, this shop is already full. There are really no extra tables. Why don't you wait a little longer? Maybe one of the customers will leave. No extra tables? The sickly young master moved his hand away from the female cultivator's perky buttocks. His gaze swept across the customers and said indifferently, "Tell them to scram." Huh? The waiter was stunned. Yes, young master. The burly man replied and turned to walk towards the surrounding tables. Very quickly, the sound of chickens and dogs jumping could be heard. The spirit cultivators who were still drinking happily were all carried out by the burly man like chickens. There was almost no room for resistance. Those who were slightly stronger also consciously left. After all, there were too many people in this young master's group, and all of them were not weak either. There was no need to get angry with him over a table. Su Yun was startled. Looking at the chaotic tavern, he thought about whether he should continue drinking or avoid this troublesome matter. However, before he could make a decision, the burly man had already walked towards him. Good brat, you actually occupied a table by yourself. Have you finished drinking? If you're done, hurry up and scram. Otherwise, you will have to suffer physical pain. The big-sized man walked over and shouted at Su Yun. Hey, gentlemen, is there a need for this? Did he have to be so domineering just for a drink? I believe that all of you are usually up to no good, right? At this moment, a contemptuous laughter came from the corner of the tavern. The sickly young man turned his head and saw 4 people sitting at the table. 3 men and a woman were drinking around the table. However, the one who spoke was the smallest of the 3 men. He was less than 6 meters tall and looked like a child. However, he was gulping down the wine, which was incompatible with his image. Who are you? The sickly young master hugged the female cultivator, walked to an empty table, and sat down. There were already enough tables, and some of the spirit cultivators who were afraid of trouble had already taken the initiative to run out of the tavern. The originally bustling tavern had become deserted after being disturbed by these people. The innkeeper did not dare to neglect these grandpas. He immediately asked the waiter to serve wine and dishes. "I'm just a treasure hunter." The child raised his wine glass and said with a smile, "Treasure hunting?" The sickly young master sneered. "I thought you guys were here to look for shit." There aren't enough people to look for shit. The shit of a giant isn't small. No matter what, you have to find some big guys to move it. I see that these subordinates of yours are more suitable to do these things. Stinking brat, what did you say? The burly man was instantly enraged. He slammed the table and stood up to roar. "Ayaya, I'm angry. I'm so scared." The child revealed a frightened expression. Seeing this, Su-yin could not help but laugh. This guy was quite similar to Octagon Aniseed. "All right, little Moo, don't say any more. Don't cause any more trouble." At this time, a dark-skinned but handsome man beside him said in a low voice. The child called Little Moo chuckled and did not say another word. The sickly young master could not see through the cultivation of the four of them and knew that they were not simple people. Seeing that the other party had calmed down, he did not say anything else. The table was enough. If he continued to make trouble, it would probably be endless. Su-yin looked outside. It was not even dawn yet, so he continued to drink. He already had a plan in his mind. When dawn arrived, he would set off for the giant valley to investigate. I've seen that there seem to be a lot of people who have come to search for treasures this time. Furthermore, there are quite a few powerful fellows. Our situation is not looking good. Just then, Little Moo, who was drinking, suddenly lowered his voice, used the profound chi to wrap his voice, and sent it to his other three companions. This method of his was to prevent others from eavesdropping in the tavern. But to Su-yin, who already possessed the existence of the spirit sage, it did not matter. "That's right, when I first entered the city, I also noticed that there might even be Spirit Emperor in this city. If I'm not wrong, these people are most likely here for the treasure." A skinny man with half-opened eyes next to him also spoke. "Don't worry, everyone. No matter how strong those treasure hunters are, it will be useless. If they don't have the key, they won't be able to open the door and will never be able to obtain the treasure. In another day, it will be the Crimson Moon Mountain, and when the door appears, there will definitely be a battle. We can wait until they fight to the death before appearing, quickly open the door, seize the treasure, and then leave." The only short-haired woman glanced at the sickly young master in the distance and said softly, "Although the idea is good, it's not easy to implement. None of these spirit cultivators are fools. We'll wait to pick it up, won't others know? That's right, it's a pity that the door to the treasure trove will only open on the night of the Crimson Moon Mountain. We still have to wait for another day, and it will only appear tomorrow night. Otherwise, we can set off earlier and take the treasure first. Don't worry, no matter what, no one else will be able to obtain the treasure. The key is still in our hands. We are already one step ahead of them. What else do we care about?" That's right. Come, drink, drink." These people seemed to be in a good mood as they raised their wine cups and drank. Su-yin, who was at the next table, frowned. Crimson Moon Mountain? The door to the treasure trove? Could it be that he needed a key to open the treasure trove? Perhaps it was the same as the Sword Ancestor's soul back then in the Wanhua realm. The Sword Ancestor's soul here was also imprisoned and found it difficult to escape. Thinking about it, Su-yin started to pay attention to the four people at the next table. Although the four of them used the profound chi to cover their voices, thinking that the others did not hear what they said, their words all fell into Su-yin's ears. No one would have thought that there would actually be a spirit sage sitting next to them. In fact, with Su-yin's methods, it would be as easy as flipping his hand to seize the key. Perhaps no one in the city would be able to stop him, but if he seized the key now, not only would it cause a commotion, it would also not be beneficial to Su-yin. After all, the Crimson Moon Mountain was tomorrow night, and even if he held the key, he would still be waiting. Furthermore, the giant valley was so big, how would he know where the door to the treasure trove was? Then he could only let these people hang the key for now. Wine is a good thing, but if you drink too much, you won't get drunk and you'll feel bored. Su-yin drank alone until dawn, then went to get a room to meditate. The tavern was not big, and even in the room, he could feel the movements of everyone inside and outside the tavern. The four of them seemed to feel that it was about time. After Su-yin left, they all returned to their rooms to rest, but they did not open 4 rooms. Instead, the 4 of them sat cross-legged in one room and cultivated. From the looks of it, they were very cautious, and if they did not separate for even a moment, the people staring at them would not be able to do anything. On the other hand, the sickly young master didn't seem to want to wait any longer. As soon as the sky brightened, he led his men out of the city and headed straight towards the giant valley. Su-yin did not know if the news of the giant valley's treasures had spread far and wide, but he knew that there were definitely a lot of people who were spying on the treasures, and this was still on the surface. He did not know what was going on in the dark, or if there were any spirit sage that would interfere in this matter. If it was an ordinary treasure, it would not be like this, but if it was really related to the sword ancestor, then Su-yin would not be surprised at all. After all, during the battle in the Wanhua realm, many of the sword ancestor's enemies had come. The key was not in the hands of these people, so Su-yin did not pay too much attention to it. He continued to stare at the 4 men and women in the inn. After a day of silence, when it was almost evening, these people came out of their rooms one after another. They were not in a hurry to leave the inn. Instead, they found a table in the corner, asked for a few pots of wine, and started to drink by themselves. After a few cups of wine, everyone looked at the sky outside, exchanged glances, and paid the money to leave. Seeing that, Su-yin walked out of the room, paid the profound coin, and walked out of the inn. The 4 of them were not in a hurry. They first prepared some necessary pills in the auction house. Then each took a shovel and dressed up as people looking for sh*t in the valley. Then, they leisurely flew towards the giant valley. Su-yin immediately followed. Following from afar, his chi was restrained. They did not even notice that there was someone following closely behind them. On the way to the giant valley, they could see many spirit cultivators, but everyone kept a distance and was on guard. People of the same trade were enemies. Some people would do anything for money. But even now, Su-yin still could not accept the fact that he was looking for sh*t for money. This was too weird. Chapter 899. It only took 6 hours to travel from the city to the giant valley. Everyone set off in the evening and arrived at the giant valley at midnight. As they approached the entrance of the valley, they could hear waves of deep and manic roars coming from within the valley. The earth trembled slightly, and the dull sound of footsteps could be heard in the valley. The air was filled with the stench of blood and rotting corpses. In the distance, there was an extremely bright and clean giant skeleton. Su-yin roughly sized it up. The skeleton was 12 meters long. The bones were smooth and slender, and many places were broken. It seemed that the giant's body was not very hard when it was alive, and around the giant skeleton, there were a large number of rotting spirit cultivator corpses. Both men and women, they had long died, their souls were gone, and the people who came here were all here to treasure. Once someone died, they would definitely be robbed by the other spirit cultivator. The money of the dead was also money, wasn't it? The group of 4 arrived at the entrance of the valley, and without hesitation, they walked straight in. The walls on both sides of the valley entrance were extremely high and abnormally steep. There were many strange flowers and herbs growing in the valley, but they did not have any medicinal value, so no one cared about them. After taking a few steps, one could see huge footprints appearing. These were the footprints left behind by the giants. The feces diggers would follow these footprints to find the feces of the giants. Of course, Su-yin's group did not lack that bit of money. Ignoring the footprints, they headed straight into the depths of the valley. On the way, they could see a few smelly fellows rushing out of the valley. When the pedestrians saw this, they all dodged out of the way. Of course, compared to this, the more dangerous ones were naturally the giants that were attracted by the spirit cultivator. It was Su-yin's first time coming to the giant valley, and he had never seen a giant before. When he went deeper into the valley and saw the first living giant, he realized that the giant skeleton outside the valley was actually so weak. The giants in the valley were at least 20 meters tall. All of their bodies were extremely thick and huge, and their entire bodies were formed from the combination of flesh and stone. The places where muscles should have grown were now covered with hard stone. They had boundless strength and astonishing might. "Be careful! There's a giant!" The dark-skinned, handsome young man in the group of four cried out in a low voice. The four of them anxiously dodged to the side. The spirit cultivator who had entered the giant valley to search for gold also sensed that something was amiss. They immediately stuck to the rock wall at the side, concealed their auras, and carefully hid their bodies. Dong! 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 The ground trembled rapidly, like a drum being continuously beaten. The smaller pebbles flew directly into the air, while the bigger ones seemed to be dancing up and down. Roar! The giant's deafening roar could be heard. Then he saw several meteor-like blue figures streaking across the night sky, rushing toward him. 3 spirit cultivator. All of them looked terrified and panicked. They were in an extremely sorry state. One of them had both his legs broken, and fresh blood sprayed through the air. However, he still endured the intense pain and urged his profound energy to fly forward. "Be careful!" The group of 4 was startled and hurriedly dodged. Behind the 3 spirit cultivators was an incomparably huge giant. The giant let out an angry roar. Its entire body was wrapped in a terrifying aura, crazily chasing after the 3 of them. Its aura was abnormally heavy. Anything that approached it, whether it was a person or an object, would be crushed into pieces. Suddenly, the giant leaped up and instantly appeared in front of the 3 of them. It was like a small mountain falling from the sky. Boom! The entire ground immediately split open, and Su Yun felt as if the air was trembling. The 3 spirit cultivators were so scared that their faces turned pale, and their souls left their bodies. 2 of them turned around in time and scuttled under the giant's armpits. However, the person with both of his legs broken was too heavily injured. He was a step too late and was directly slapped by the giant's hand. He instantly fell to the ground and was already in a daze. "This is bad. This guy won't be able to escape." The group of 4 looked at him with a serious expression. "Don't eat me. Don't." The man with both legs broken came back to his senses, only to see that the giant had already covered him with its thick and huge hand. The pitch-black shadow not only enveloped his body, but also his heart. He cried out in fear. Looking at the falling hand, he seemed to have lost all will to fight and even forgot to escape. The giant easily caught him in his hand. Only now did the man regain his senses. He struggled crazily, but no matter how he struggled, he was unable to break free from the giant's control. The giant's strength was astonishing. It was as easy as flipping his hand. It was not something that the injured spirit cultivator could easily break free from. The giant grabbed the man, and without any hesitation, he extended his other hand, grabbed the man's upper body, and then forcefully pulled. Slash! The spirit cultivator was instantly dismembered and torn into 2 halves. Fresh blood spurted out like a broken fruit. Before his soul could even spill out, it was sent into the giant's mouth and chewed wantonly. He died a miserable death. As the giant chewed on the spirit cultivator's corpse, he turned around and continued to chase in the direction of the 2 spirit cultivators. Dong! 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 The earth continued to tremble. Only when they were far away did the spirit cultivators, who were hiding on both sides, quietly fly out. The giants of a giant valley usually don't eat people easily. From the looks of it, it's most likely that these 3 spirit cultivators angered him. The woman in the group of 4 said, "Infuriated? What? Picking up its feces will infuriate him. Useless. Do you think everyone will dig for feces?" The woman spat and said, "The giant is not only valuable in its feces, its internal organs are even more valuable, especially the muscles on its body that have already turned into rocks. That is the best material for forging armor, and each piece can be sold for tens of millions of profound coins. I think the 3 of them must have wanted to sneak attack the giant and dig out the rocks on its body. Didn't you see that the giant's abdomen was injured? However, They failed and were attacked by the giant, which is why they ended up like this. If that's the case, then won't they be able to escape if the giant chases them? If they don't get caught by the giant and escape from the giant valley, they can still live. If they can't, they will die. If they are eaten by the giant, their souls will be crushed and digested together. This is so terrifying. We just don't provoke the giants. If we meet the giants, we will find a place to hide. They won't easily find us. All right, let's not talk anymore. Let's continue on our way. The dark-skinned man said. The other three nodded and continued to head deeper into the valley. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. Although the giants in the giant valley were as fierce as tigers, in the eyes of the spirit cultivators, they were mountains of gold. Often, a large number of spirit cultivators could be seen luring the giants to remote corners to besiege them, and they could also see one or even several giants chasing after the spirit cultivators. The huge valley was chaotic and noisy because of the battle between the giants and the spirit cultivators. There were many forks in the giant valley, like a maze. The four of them avoided contact with the giants and walked for a full 4 hours before stopping. There was a three-way fork in the road. It was quite spacious, with no trees or rocks around. In the center, there was a dilapidated stone platform. The stone platform was square, 5 meters long and wide. It was not big, but it was very dilapidated and emitted a foul smell. There was also a lot of dirt beside it. It seemed that the giant had used this place as a toilet. It's here. The dark-skinned man glanced around and finally looked at the moon in the sky that was gradually turning red and said indifferently, "Is this here? The smell here is so bad." The female cultivator pinched her nose and said, "Just bear with it. Think about those guys. They can even endure that. It's just a little smell here. Can't you stand it? Well, how long will it take for the Red Moon Mountain to appear?" Looking at the time, there's still less than 2 hours left. Then what should we do? Let's leave this place first and hide nearby. I suspect that there will be more people coming here, but they don't have the key, so it's unnecessary for them to come. The Red Moon Mountain appears once every few years. If we miss it, we'll have to wait for a few years. After the tan man finished speaking, he ran to the side. Seeing this, everyone immediately followed. Was there still 2 hours left? That was troublesome. Su Yin raised his head and looked at the moon in the sky. After thinking for a while, he walked towards the direction of the four people. His aura could not be detected by the four people at all, so he casually found a place to hide. At the same time, he sized up the environment. Would the soul of the sword ancestor really exist in this place? If the treasure trove was really the place where the soul of the sword ancestor was imprisoned, then who imprisoned him? A series of questions rose in Su Yun's mind, but no one could give him an answer. So just then, a large number of piercing sounds came from afar. Dozens of spirit cultivators flew over at a low altitude. Their speed was extremely fast. Their bodies were almost wrapped in air. In the blink of an eye, they flew from the entrance of the valley to here. Sure enough, someone came. Su Yun looked over. What a coincidence. These guys are the people he met in the tavern last night, and the leader was the sickly young master. When these people arrived, they immediately dispersed, as if they were looking for something. After a while, they heard someone shouting loudly, "Young master, it can't be wrong. It's here." After a while, there will be a gate that leads to the treasure trove. At that time, as long as we open the gate, we can enter the treasure trove and obtain the treasures left behind by the supreme expert. A man turned his head and said to the young master, who was still hugging the female cultivator, "All right." The young master nodded and shouted, "All of you, quickly prepare. Those who set up the formation, those who set up the lower realms, occupy this place first. I don't want anyone to disturb me." "Yes, sir," everyone shouted. Chapter 900. These fellows did things in an orderly manner. They immediately spread out and set up a barrier. Their movements were extremely fast and skillful, as if they had already arranged everything beforehand. The 10 spirit cultivators separated from the crowd and stood guard at the front and back. If anyone else approached, they would immediately notify them. These enchantments and formations were not activated and were hidden. If someone approached, they would not be able to detect them. They would also avoid them and let them pass, to prevent them from becoming suspicious when they saw so many people gathered here. I didn't expect these guys to also come for the treasure. The group of 4 hiding in the shadows were already sneering. The dark-skinned man leading the group snorted and said, "Looks like we have an opponent. Big brother, do we need to make a move now? If we let them set up the enchantment properly, I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with them." The woman whispered, "Don't worry, they're just a bunch of mobs. We don't need to put them in our eyes. I've observed their cultivation. The strongest is only at the 5th stage of the Spirit Emperor. We can easily crush them, but I do not know if there are any other people here other than them. So everyone should be careful. Then shall we sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight? I have to see if there's another tiger coming. Yeah, I hope it's fun." The 4 of them laughed in low voices. In their eyes, these fellows were just lambs that could be slaughtered at will. Suyin did not know how many people knew about this news, but from the looks of it, there should be quite a few people who knew about it. Just where did the 4 of them get their keys from? After going to the treasure trove, he would have to ask them about it. Time slowly passed, and the atmosphere in this place became subtle. The sickly young master looked around from time to time. He felt that he was being watched, but there was nothing around him. There was nothing at all. Whoosh! At this moment, a strange cold wind suddenly blew in from outside the valley. A large number of thick dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky. These dark clouds floated at an extremely fast speed, instantly covering the reddish moon in the sky. The entire valley suddenly turned ice cold. The temperature plummeted. Everyone felt this change, and their expressions all changed. "Young master, the crimson moon is shining on the mountain." One of them cried out anxiously. "Very good." The sickly young master let go of the female cultivator and waved his hand. "The crimson moon illuminating mountain is about to appear. Immediately activate the barrier and seal this place. When the door to the treasure appears, attack the door with all your might and break it. Do you understand?" "Yes." The people shouted. Voila. The barrier was activated, and the array formation was activated. The dim giant valley immediately burst out with bursts of colorful lights. When the nearby spirit cultivator saw this, they were all curious, but they did not dare to approach. To spirit cultivator, curiosity was often the fuse that would lead them to death. Blast open the door to the treasure vault? Are they planning to force their way in without the key? The female cultivator in the group of 4 said in shock. "It shouldn't be broken so easily, right? Unless they have some special means." The dark-skinned man was also quite nervous as he whispered. The 4 of them stared at the other side with bright eyes, all of them tensed up. "Child idealism, I didn't expect you to come here today. Are you here for the treasure in the giant valley? Unfortunately, this treasure doesn't belong to you." At this moment, a grand voice floated over from afar, and then 3 figures quickly rushed over. "Who is it?" The sickly young master called idealism spoke indifferently. "Zwasi," the person called out. "Taoists Zwasi." Idealism's face suddenly became serious. The 3 of them flew over, and with a single palm strike, they shattered the barrier that Idealism and the others had meticulously set up and landed in front of the dozens of spirit cultivator. The 3 of them were all middle-aged, dressed in red robes, and the leader had a goatee. His chi was restrained, and it was impossible to see through his strength. He was most likely in existence at the peak of the Spirit Emperor. The ultimate martial world was extremely huge. There were all kinds of people with all kinds of cultivation, but existences that reached the Spirit Emperor were extremely rare. For people at the peak of the Spirit Emperor, they were usually at the Domain Lord level, and only lived in the discussions of people. They might not even be able to see one in several regions. Who would have thought that one would show up today? The 4 of them seemed to have heard of this Taoist Wasi before. When they saw him appear, their expressions turned ugly. "I didn't expect you to come as well. Taoist Wasi, where did you get the news about the Crimson Moon Mountain?" Young Master Idealism clenched his fists and shouted in a low voice. "Do I still need to know from somewhere? This poor Taoist has known for 100 years that the giant valley is actually divided into 2 layers. The first layer is the outer valley that you see, and the second layer is the inner valley. After the red moon shines on the mountain, the inner valley and the outer valley will be temporarily connected due to the dislocation of the space. You can enter the inner valley through the connection. The treasure of the giant valley is hidden in the inner valley. Obtaining this treasure is better than cultivating for 1,000 years. Today, this poor Taoist has come here to obtain this treasure. Taoist Zhuisi, are you determined to get it? Had you ever placed this young master in your eyes? Only Idealism's face was filled with anger. Young Master Idealism, don't say that I don't give your father face. Even if your father comes today, I am not afraid. Since your father and I have known each other for a while, you should leave first. Otherwise, when we fight later, swords have no eyes. It's not good to hurt you, and it's not good to hurt the relationship between this poor Taoist and your father. Taoist Zhuisi said impolitely. Hearing that, Idealism's face turned red with anger. According to Taoist Zhuisi, he should be acquainted with young Master Idealism's father. However, he was willing to fall out with him for the treasure. It was enough to show that the treasure was extraordinary. Big brother, do we have a good chance of winning against Zhuisi? The female cultivator in the group of 4 could not help but ask. Good? Not really. Perhaps we can fight to a draw. Among the 3 of them, Zhuisi is a little tricky, but the problem is that even if we defeat him, what can we do? If both sides are injured, I'm afraid we won't have the strength to get the treasure. The dark-skinned man said in a low voice. The 4 of them fell silent. Mr. Idealism gritted his teeth. He did not know whether he should stay or leave. With Taoist Zhuisi's means, it was impossible for him to fight against him. Since Taoist Zhuisi had already said so much, he could not stay. Whoosh! At that moment, a strong wind blew again. The thick clouds that shrouded the high moon immediately dispersed. The blood-red moonlight fell from the sky like a thin veil, enveloping the earth. Everyone looked up. At that moment, the moon in the sky had turned blood-red. The moonlight shone on the valley, completely covering the mountain walls on both sides. The entire mountaintop seemed to be covered in blood. A circular red light fell from the sky and hit the broken square stone platform in the middle. In an instant, the stone platform shone brightly, and a blood-red curtain was formed. The curtain was like a thin veil that swayed gently, but it did not take long for it to stabilize and turn into the shape of a door. Such a change attracted everyone's attention. This is the door to the treasure trove. Taoist Zhuisi's gaze seemed to be attracted by a magnet. He stared at the veil-like door and could not move his eyes away. The group of 4 and Idealism were the same. They stared blankly for a while before coming back to their senses. Attack the door. Quick, break the door. Taoist Zhuisi came back to his senses and immediately shouted at the 2 people behind him. The 2 of them did not dare to hesitate. They charged straight at the door and slapped it with their palms. All kinds of terrifying mystical techniques were crazily smashed at the veil-like door. Boom, boom, boom! A violent explosion sounded on the door. The sound spread far and wide, causing the earth and mountain ranges to tremble. The spirit cultivators in the distance all retreated from the valley, thinking that something strange had happened in the valley. However, the 2 spirit cultivators that Taoist Zhuisi brought continuously attacked for more than 30 breaths of time, but they still did not manage to blast the door open. In fact, they did not even leave a single mark on it. Taoist Zhuisi frowned and stared at the door. He took a deep breath and suddenly moved his finger. A snow-white light burst out from his fingertip and struck the door. Poodoo! The light smashed into the door, but it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. There were no ripples. The hardness of this door is beyond everyone's imagination. It won't be that easy to break it open. Idealism, who was at the side, laughed. This scene did not exceed his expectations. Zhuisi looked at him and said solemnly, Nephew, do you have any ideas? Heh, are you calling me nephew now? Idealism sneered. There is a way, but I have no fate with this treasure, so I won't say it. You won't say it? Taoist Zhuisi, take your time to get the treasure. We won't accompany you anymore. Let's go. Idealism cupped his fists and planned to lead his men away. However, as soon as they moved, the 2 people on the other side instantly appeared in front of Idealism, blocking his path. Go! Zhuasi said calmly. If you don't hand over the method to open the treasure door, do you think you could go anywhere? You want to kill me? Humans die for wealth, birds die for food. If it's for treasures, it's nothing to die for. Then go ahead and kill me. At most, no one will take the treasure. Idealism said indifferently. You? Then what do you want? Give me half of the treasure. Half. Taoist Zhuasi's eyes were filled with killing intent. Why do you have to bargain with me? It's fine if you don't agree. Do it, I won't resist. I agree. Taoist Zhuasi shouted helplessly. Oh, if you help me open the treasure door, I'll give you half of the treasure. Hee, isn't that right? Idealism smiled, feeling that he had achieved his goal. He waved his hand, and the spirit cultivators immediately dispersed. They surrounded the light muslin door and began to cast spells with their eyes closed. Idealism took out a round ball from somewhere, closed his eyes, and chanted an incantation. From the looks of it, he had come prepared. Taoist Zhuasi watched patiently from the side. He did not say anything, but his eyes flickered frequently. No one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 901. Seeing that Taoist Zhuasi and Mr. Idealism had joined hands to open the door to the treasure, the group of four was terrified and could not sit still. What kind of treasure is that? It's so aggressive. The short-haired man in the group of four stared at the ball in Mr. Idealism's hand and said in a deep voice, "Since Mr. Idealism dared to come here, he must have come prepared. Although we have the key, I'm afraid it's not the only way to open the treasure. We've miscalculated," the dark-skinned man said. Then, "Big brother, what should we do? Now that Mr. Idealism and Taoist Zhuasi have joined hands, we can't deal with them at all. However, if we ignore them, they will definitely open the door and seize the treasure." The female cultivator in the group of four said worriedly. "Don't panic," the dark-skinned man said solemnly. "Although I don't have much contact with Taoist Zhuasi, I know him quite well. He is greedy, and it can be seen from the fact that he dared to fall out with Mr. Idealism for the treasure. Currently, he has joined hands with Mr. Idealism because there is no way to open the door, but Idealism does. However, have you ever thought that if the door to the treasure is opened, will Taoist Zhuasi still cooperate with him?" As soon as he said that, the eyes of the other three lit up. "Big brother, you mean Mr. Idealism is still too naive and naive. He has never thought about what he should do if the door to the treasure is opened, and he has no bargaining chips to be on equal footing with Taoist Zhuasi. If I were Taoist Zhuasi, I would immediately fall out with him and take the treasure for myself. Anyway, there's no need to show mercy," the dark-skinned man said. "Then Mr. Idealism will become angry and refuse to leave, so he will fight with Taoist Zhuasi," the short-haired man said. "With Mr. Idealism's temperament, it's very possible. Moreover, Taoist Zhuasi may not let Idealism go." "Haha, then we have a chance." The other three laughed and were in an extremely good mood. Although plans could not keep up with changes, sometimes changes might be beneficial to oneself. Suya no longer had much interest in this group of four. His gaze had been fixed on the door of the treasure trove ever since it appeared, and it was difficult for him to shift his gaze away. Looking at the mist-like door, Su Yun was a little absent-minded. This gate was completely constructed from the power of space. Although it looked very orderly, the power that constructed it was messy, as if it was a natural power that had been deliberately combined by someone. However, Su Yun could not find anything similar to the Sword Ancestor's chi from the door. Perhaps this treasure trove was not the location of the Sword Ancestor. He would most likely be disappointed this time. Creak! At this moment, a sharp voice rang out from the entrance of the treasure vault. Su Yun looked over, only to see that the ball in young Master Idealism's hand had turned into a round scimitar. The scimitar was as sharp as the cold moon, overflowing with cold light, as if anything that got close to it would be cut in half by its sharpness. Mr. Idealism drove the marvelous and sharp scimitar toward the door. Every time the scimitar hit the door, there would be a creaking sound, and ripples would appear at the point where the scimitar hit the door. When Taoist Zhuasi saw the curved saber, His eyes lit up, and he could not look away. Even a fool could tell that this scimitar was a treasure. Normally, other than fighting, spirit cultivators would not easily reveal their treasures. The human heart was hard to fathom. Who knew if they would attract a few one-eyed wolves because of this? Crack! Crack! The door to the treasure vault was cracked by the young master idealism. Everyone was overjoyed. They did not expect the scimitar to have such power. Ah, nephew, what kind of treasure is this? Its power is actually stronger than a person at the 8th stage of the Spirit Emperor. Taoist Wasi laughed and asked, "Huh?" Young master idealism ignored him and continued to attack the door. Seeing this, Taoist Wasi was not angry. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he quietly watched from the side. At this moment, every movement of young master idealism attracted everyone's attention. He was already the focus of the entire audience. Everyone held their breaths and stared at him nervously, waiting for him to break open the door to the treasure vault. The 4 of them were the same. Only now did they realize that the key in their hands was an unnecessary existence. He could break it open with brute force? No wonder they were able to obtain the key, because no one else had any intention of taking it. Crack! At this moment, an extremely loud sound rang out in the empty valley, followed by the noise of a large amount of glass shattering. Young master idealism loosened his grip, and the scimitar directly pierced through the door. The door to the treasure vault shattered. It's done. Young master idealism was overjoyed. Everyone had a look of joy on their faces. They never thought that someone would be able to forcefully break open this door. However, in the next second, young master idealism was sent flying and crashed into the distant wall of the valley. He smashed a huge hole in the wall and spat out a mouthful of blood when he landed. A large part of his back had caved in. Such a sudden scene was shocking. Everyone looked towards the place where young master idealism was standing, only to see another person standing there. Taoist Wasi. Young master idealism stood up with all his might, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said angrily and painfully, "Taoist Wasi, kill them." Taoist Wasi said indifferently. His voice was especially cold. One second, his expression was friendly, and the next second, he was like a poisonous scorpion. As soon as his voice fell, the 2 spirit cultivators beside him immediately rushed towards the people that young master idealism brought with him, while Taoist Wasi walked towards young master idealism. The scene instantly became chaotic. Although Taoist Wasi's side had fewer people, they were all extremely powerful. The 2 of them rushed into the dozens of people like 2 fierce tigers pouncing on a flock of sheep, fighting crazily. Although there were many people on young master idealism's side, they could not stop the 2 of them, and one by one they fell. Young master idealism's expression changed drastically, and he was already trembling with fear. He took a few steps back and looked at Taoist Wasi, who was walking over, and shouted anxiously, "Uncles, oh uncles, this treasure. I don't want this treasure anymore. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. You shouldn't have come here. You're putting me in a difficult position." Taoist Wasi sneered and said, "But since you've come here and I've snatched your treasure, you must hate me. If I let you go today, won't you complain about me to your father and let him make things difficult for me? Although I'm not afraid of your father, it will be quite troublesome if he gets angry. I'm afraid of trouble the most, so in order to avoid trouble, it's better to nip it in the bud. It's more appropriate." The corners of his mouth curled up strangely, and killing intent exploded in his eyes. "Uncle Zwa, I know I was wrong. I won't say anything to my father. Uncle Zwa, let me go. Uncle Zwa, let me go." Young master idealism shouted at the top of his lungs. How could he have expected Taoist Wasi to be such a despicable and sinister person? "Ha ha, nephew, if you die, your father will never know that I did it. On the contrary, I can push the blame of your death onto my enemies, and let your father and my enemies fight each other to the death. At that time, I can reap the benefits. Wouldn't that be great?" "Ha ha!" Taoist Wasi laughed and was about to attack. However, at this critical moment, young master idealism suddenly raised his head. With a shake of his arm, a ray of black light shot out. The black light was like a moon and shot straight at Taoist Zwisi. The attack was so sudden that it was impossible to guard against it. Taoist Zwisi hurriedly waved his hand, and a horsetail whisk appeared in his hand. The soft silk suddenly exploded like a blooming flower. It stood straight in front of him, intending to block the black light released by young master idealism. However, the strength of the black light far exceeded Taoist Zwisi's expectations. It directly shattered the horsetail whisk and hit his chest. His chest was instantly penetrated, and he flew out and fell hard to the ground. Cough, cough. Ugh, puffed. Taoist Zwisi opened his mouth and spat out blood. The mystic chi in his body also scattered, and he became very miserable. The two spirit cultivators who were still fighting with young master idealism were shocked when they saw this abnormal situation. Zwisi, you didn't expect this, did you? I still have this move. Ha ha ha. Young master idealism stood up, his face contorted, and he let out ear-piercing laughter. However, he did not laugh for long before he started coughing. The blow that Taoist Zwisi gave him just now was not light. Indeed, like father, like son. How despicable, just like your father. Taoist Zwisi got up and hurriedly sat down cross-legged, wanting to use chi to heal his injuries. However, young master idealism would not give him the chance. He immediately shouted, "Everyone kill Taoist Zwisi. All of you. Don't give him a chance to catch his breath. Hurry." Yes. The remaining people immediately rushed towards Taoist Zwisi without caring about anything else. However, the people on Taoist Zwisi's side did not stop either. They hurriedly moved closer to protect him. The two sides fought fiercely again. However, although Taoist Zwisi was injured, the two experts were powerful. Young master idealism's side was still having a hard time. Such a situation had already made the group of four restless. Both sides were injured, and it was a good time to attack. "Big brother, get ready," the dark-skinned man shouted in a low voice. Everyone immediately gathered their mystic chi and prepared to attack. However, at that moment, a strong gust of wind suddenly appeared behind them, blowing towards the treasure trove with an astonishing momentum. The four of them were shocked and hurriedly looked in the direction of sound. They saw that a person had appeared there at some point in time. This person seemed to have appeared out of thin air. There were no signs, and no one did not even know how he got close. Who is this person? The four of them were filled with doubts. At that moment, they did not dare to move anymore. The sudden change made them feel inexplicably worried and afraid. Chapter 902. The appearance of this person surprised both parties. After all, when this person appeared, they were surprised to find that this person did not give off any aura. They could not tell how strong he was, nor could they tell how strong he was. Even if he was near, they would not know. Moreover, this person dared to come here alone. How could he be an ordinary person? However, after he appeared, he did not intervene in the fight between the two parties. Instead, he turned around and walked directly toward the door of the treasure. Seeing this, everyone was furious. Was he ignoring them? However, Mr. Idealism and Taoist Zwisi did not dare to be distracted to deal with this person because they were currently struggling to fight against him. Therefore, the team of four could not wait any longer. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. For figures rushed straight toward the door. From now on, anyone who fights for the treasure will be treated as an enemy. Kill. The dark-skinned man shouted coldly. Okay. The other three replied loudly. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. It was already at the critical moment, and if they were to stay on the spot and wait for any changes, then they would be missing out on this peerless treasure. However, the four of them were a beat too late. At this moment, a group of about 8 people suddenly rushed out from the dark. They were all swordsmen, and their aura was very fierce. They flew out like lightning and entered the door. Thereafter, images could still be vaguely seen in the air. The dark-skinned man was shocked and exclaimed, "Oh no, the 8 evil sword is here too." Other than the dark-skinned man, the others in the team of 4 did not see who these people were. 8 Evil's sword. The other three all turned pale, as if they had heard something extremely terrifying. Big brother, what should we do? Go in? I'm afraid. I'm afraid we're no match for the 8 Evil sword. If it's them, we can't act recklessly. Otherwise, we'll lose our lives. Rumor has it that the 8 Evil swords can devour people's souls. The souls of their enemies will be sealed in their swords to strengthen the power of their swords. If we fight with them for the treasure, I'm afraid we'll have to fight with them. None of these people are weaker than us, and they outnumber us twice. I'm afraid we can't fight them. Big brother. The three of them looked worriedly at the dark-skinned man. So you want to give up here? The dark-skinned man said in a deep voice, "We've worked so hard for this treasure and made so many preparations. Now that we've met a strong enemy, are we going to give up?" But the female cultivator wanted to say something, but was interrupted. You don't have to worry at all. In fact, we don't need to face the 8 Evils sword head-on. Didn't you notice the person who went in first? I can't sense that person's aura, nor can I see through his cultivation. I think he's no ordinary person. Since he dares to come here alone, I'm afraid he must have something up his sleeves. The 8 Evil swords rushed in right after he entered, most likely to deal with this person. We could take advantage of the time when this person and the 8 Evil swords are fighting to break into the treasure trove, seize the treasure, and quickly leave. These people are being held back by others. Only we have this opportunity. The dark-skinned man said solemnly, "Are you going to waste this heaven-sent opportunity?" His words caused the hearts of everyone present to palpitate. Everyone's breathing quickened. Thinking about the mysterious treasure inside, they felt that their blood was about to boil. They had come here and suffered a lot. Were they going to be scared away? Although they were afraid of death, they also wanted the treasure more. "Big brother, we'll follow you." Finally, the short-haired man could not hold it in anymore and shouted in a low voice, "What about you?" "We? Okay, we'll go too." The other two immediately expressed their stance. "Very good." The dark-skinned man's expression finally eased a little. He nodded and said, "If that's the case, we'll take action now. You guys hide your aura and don't attract their attention. Follow me." After saying that, he jumped out of the rock and rushed toward the gate. Everyone followed closely behind. Mr. Idealism and Taoist Zhuisi were still fighting fiercely. Taoist Zhuisi was an old fox after all. Although he had suffered a loss from Mr. Idealism, his profound qi did not decrease. The difference in cultivation between Mr. Idealism and Taoist Zhuisi was too great. Under such conditions, Mr. Idealism was still being suppressed. In less than half an incense stick's time, most of the people on Mr. Idealism's side had died. Although Taoist Zhuisi's side was not doing well and was injured, he had already gained an absolute advantage. "It's over." Taoist Zhuisi's mouth was cold. He suddenly took out his horsetail whisk and threw it directly at Mr. Idealism. The snow-white horsetail whisk exploded, and the strands of hair were as hard as steel blades. They directly penetrated Mr. Idealism's body, and he instantly turned into a thumb-sized piece of meat. He died immediately. The rest of the people could not escape their fate either. They were all killed by Taoist Zhuisi's two subordinates. Mr. Idealism's army was completely annihilated. The ground was covered in blood. The battle here had attracted 2 giants and countless spirit cultivators. Coupled with the appearance of the Red Moon Mountain, more and more people rushed over. The Valley of Giants was bustling that night. Mr. Idealism's soul overflowed, but it was quickly caught by Taoist Zhuisi and kept into a small bottle. The souls of the others were not so lucky. They were all destroyed. "Senior brother, it's not safe to stay here for long. You've suffered a great loss from that kid. You'd better hurry up and heal your injuries." The middle-aged man on the left said in a low voice. "It's all right." Taoist Zhuisi said in a low voice, "It's not every day that a phenomenon like the Red Moon Mountain appears. Now that the door is open and the treasure is close at hand, how can we leave just like that? All of you, quickly follow me in. Let's get the treasure first." As soon as he finished speaking, Taoist Zhuisi turned around and rushed inside. After passing through the door, a blood-red world appeared before everyone's eyes. There was nothing here, only giant rocks, as well as miserable skeletons. These skeletons were all the skeletons of giants. They were incomparably large and extremely terrifying. Daoist Zhuisi flew into the air and rushed inside at an extremely fast speed. This was the place of the treasure, and also the inner valley of the Valley of Giants. Senior brother, do you know where the treasure of that mighty figure is located? One of the two middle-aged men following behind could not help but ask. The inner valley is not big, but we can identify its location based on its aura. When I entered this place, I smelled a very special scent. Just follow me. Daoist Zhuisi covered the huge hole in his chest and said in a low voice, "We'll be relying on you this time, senior brother. We'll definitely help you obtain the treasure." The two of them said in unison, "All right, senior brothers, don't worry. Once we get the treasure, the three of us will split it equally." As Daoist Zhuisi spoke, he increased the activation of his mystic force and increased his speed. However, the three of them had not flown for long when they were shocked by the smell of blood in front of them. What followed was a series of strange sounds. Daoist Zhuisi's body trembled. He looked up and saw a few people standing not far away. They were the group of 4 who had entered before them. However, the 4 of them were standing there like statues at that moment, motionless. Daoist Zhuisi was bewildered. Although the 4 of them had lower cultivation levels than him, they were already so close. How could they not sense it? No, it was not that they could not sense it, but that they did not care about him at all. Daoist Zhuisi was a smart person. If these weaklings sensed the strong aura on his side, they would definitely be terrified and would not be able to guard against it in time. However, they did not pay attention to it. Perhaps something had attracted their attention. Daoist Zhuisi's expression froze slightly. He shot a look at his 2 junior brothers behind him. The 3 of them slowed down and approached. However, as they approached, the scene in front of the group of 4 also appeared in their line of sight. At that moment, Daoist Zhuisi and the others were stunned. In the distance, there were a few tall figures standing on an empty ground. Those figures were Su Yun and the 8 Evil Sword. However, at that moment, their postures and aura were rather strange. They were gathered together and did not surround Su Yun. Each of them held their swords in front of them, but their arms were trembling and they looked rather nervous. There were only 7 people standing, including Su Yun. There were 2 figures lying on the ground. What was shocking was that the heads of the 2 people lying on the ground had disappeared and blood flowed all over the ground. What's going on? Daoist Zhuisi cried out involuntarily. The strange scene was puzzling. However, he saw Su Yun move. He walked straight towards the remaining 6 Evil's swords at a steady pace. However, as he approached, the remaining 6 Evil's swords kept retreating, and their bodies trembled even more violently. At this point, Daoist Zhuisi understood this person was very strong. He was so strong that even the 6 Evil Sword were afraid of him. The 2 Evil Swords were probably killed by this person. However, how long had it been? Why were there 2 Evil Swords killed? This person should be ridiculously strong, right? At that moment, an angry roar erupted from the front. However, one of the 6 Evil's swords seemed to be unable to endure the humiliation. With a low roar, he waved his sword and charged forward. The sword blade emitted a large amount of sword chi, which split into several in the air and went straight for Su Yun's face. The sharp and terrifying sword chi was like the sharp claws of a demon. However, when it smashed onto Su Yun's body, Su Yun seemed to be unharmed. There was not the slightest injury on his body. What? Seeing this scene, Daoist Zhuisi was stunned. However, he saw Su Yun stretch out his hand and grab the Evil Sword's head, then exert force. Puchi, the Evil Sword, did not even have the time to dodge before his head was directly crushed. His protective, profound energy and magic treasures were practically useless against him. He died a horrible death. Chapter 903. Was he slaughtering a pig or a dog? Everyone present looked at this scene in shock. Another Evil Sword had died. Rumor had it that the 8 Evil Sword was extremely ferocious and powerful. However, the 8 Evil Sword that they saw today was in such a sorry state, like a stray dog. We don't want this treasure anymore. It's yours, it's yours. The head sword of the eight evils sword could no longer endure the suffocating feeling of pain. He roared in a low voice and retreated, wanting to leave the place. However, just as they stood up, a sword chi instantly pierced through their bodies and devoured them. However, when the sword chi dissipated, a large pile of minced meat fell from the sky. The pieces of meat mixed with blood splattered on the cold ground. It was as if they had landed on the hearts of these people. They stared blankly at Su Yun, and at that moment, it was as if even their breathing had stopped. Killing the eight evils sword in an instant, Taoist Zhuisi was so shocked that he could not speak. He felt that his heart was trembling. This person, who was he? Su Yun glanced at the corpse on the ground and did not care about it. He turned around and planned to continue walking inside. However, after taking a few steps, he noticed a few people standing in the distance. Su Yun did not even look at Taoist Zhuisi and the others. His gaze landed on the group of four. "You guys come over here," Su Yun said calmly. The four of them trembled and stared at Su Yun with wide eyes. Their legs were already swaying. "Just come over. Don't make me repeat myself." As Su Yun spoke, he raised the death sword in his hand and swung it at Taoist Zhuisi and the others. A sword chi that surpassed lightning struck Taoist Zhuisi's body in an instant, tearing his body into pieces. Taoist Zhuisi did not even have time to react before he was hit. How could he have expected that Su Yun would not even say a word or even look at him before directly attacking him? When the four of them saw this, their faces turned pale with fright. How could they dare to disobey Su Yun's words? Trembling, he immediately walked towards the other side. After Taoist Zhuisi died, his two junior brothers immediately turned around and ran. However, Su Yun did not plan to let the two of them go. Since they were here, if they were to leave, they might attract even more spirit cultivators. If they were to cause trouble, it would be easier to kill them, as the two of them were not good people. In front of Su Yun, the two of them naturally did not have the ability to escape. After a few breaths of time, they were captured and killed. Seeing the famous Taoist Zhuisi being wiped out so easily by Su Yun, the four of them no longer had any thoughts of resisting. The four of them walked over, still not daring to look at Su Yun. They could only lower their heads, their faces pale like frightened rabbits. "Come with me. I have some questions to ask you. If I'm satisfied with your answers, I won't kill you," Su Yun said as he turned and walked towards the inner parts of the valley. The four of them followed. One of the female spirit cultivator secretly looked at Su Yun and was surprised to discover that this person seemed to be the person she had seen in the tavern before. The four of them were extremely nervous as they secretly exchanged glances with their teammates. However, they had already seen Su Yun's methods and did not plan to escape. If they escaped, they would probably die even faster. The valley was not big, and Su Yun quickly reached the end. At the end of the valley was a pitch-black hole. There was a large amount of azure chi swirling around the hole, forming a sharp contrast with the dark blood-red hue of the valley. This must be the entrance to the buried treasure trove. The tan man cried out involuntarily. Most likely so, Su Yun said indifferently. He was not in a hurry to enter, but turned around and asked them, "Let me ask you, where did you get the key to the entrance to the treasure trove?" "Ugh." The tan man revealed a surprised expression. "How do you know we have the key to the treasure trove? I heard everything you said in the tavern." The four of them were shocked, but they quickly felt relieved. With Su Yun's cultivation, it was impossible for their conversation to be hidden from Su Yun's ears. "We found it from the remains of a dead spirit cultivator," the tan man said in a low voice. "Dead spirit cultivator? Where? Who? When?" 3 years ago, on a wasteland outside the ancient Heart City, we passed by and saw that the man's corpse was exposed in the wilderness. His entire body was smashed and his cultivation was lost, but from the scene of the battle, the person who killed him must have a very high cultivation, and his cultivation is also not ordinary. Most of his things were taken away, leaving behind this key and some inconspicuous things. I think the key was not taken away, most likely because that person did not know what the key was. 3 years ago, Su-yin rubbed his chin. Maybe it was not the original owner of the key. That, sir, will you really let us go? The female cultivator's entire body was trembling, and even her words were trembling. If you protect the door for me, I won't kill you, Su-yin said indifferently. Shinner ignored the four of them and directly walked into the big hole, her figure quickly disappearing into the hole. The four of them looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Big brother, what should we do? Everyone's gaze was focused on the tan man. The man clenched his fists tightly and took deep breaths, hoping to ease his nervous mood. Very quickly, he opened his mouth. For the time being, let's guard here. That person has entered the cave. Let's take the opportunity to escape. Escape? How? That person's methods are heaven-defying. I'm afraid he knows about any movement outside the cave. If we really escape, once we're caught by him, we will definitely die. Rather than that, it would be better to obediently guard here. He has obtained the treasure and has already achieved his goal. There is no benefit in killing us, so he will definitely let us go. So calm down and guard here. Hearing their big brother say this, no one dared to refute and could only nod their heads. Thus, the four of them became Su-yun's door gods outside the cave. Su-yun was naturally just speaking casually. He was not a homicidal maniac. How could he like to kill so much? The purpose of coming here was to search for the sword ancestor's soul. If the four of them were to behave themselves, he would naturally let them go. After entering the cave, surprisingly, it was not as dark as it looked from the outside. Instead, it was very bright, and the mountain walls inside were all crystal-colored, which was especially beautiful. The smell inside was also quite fresh, completely different from the rotten stench outside. It was as if the inside and outside were two different worlds. Su-yun walked inside step by step, his feet tapping on the ground, producing a clear sound. After taking a few steps, his entire body suddenly trembled. A strange and familiar aura filled the air. This aura was unbelievably sharp, but also unbelievably indifferent. It was faintly discernible, illusory, and ethereal. If it was someone who had never come into contact with it before, they would most likely ignore it when they smelled it. However, Su-yun would not. Although he was not very familiar with this aura, he still knew it clearly. This was the aura of the sword ancestor. There could be no mistake. This was definitely the place where the sword ancestor's soul was imprisoned. Su-yun was extremely excited. He immediately stepped forward, and after a moment, a cold voice floated over. What a familiar smell. Who is it? This voice was the voice of the sword ancestor. Just that, compared to the voice of the sword ancestor's soul in the Wanhua realm, this voice seemed to be a little different. Su-yun's heart was filled with suspicions. He slowly walked forward, but the sound of footsteps came from inside. He raised his head and saw a figure walking out from the darkness in the distance. The figure was blurry and dim. Its appearance could not be seen clearly. Even its robes were blurry, but judging from its general outline, it was definitely the soul of the sword ancestor. Junior Su-yun greets ancestor. Su-yun cupped his fists and said, Su-yun, who is it? This junior is the successor of the Limitless Sword sect. Speaking of which, I am also the ancestor's disciple. Disciple? I see that your Limitless Sword arts is not strong. How could the Limitless Sword sect that I created let you be my successor? The man snorted and said mercilessly. Su-yun was startled. He did not know how to reply. Speaking of which, this sword ancestor's soul seemed to be even more difficult to get along within the one in the Wanhua realm. What are you doing here? Seeing that Su-yun did not speak, the sword ancestor spoke again. Save you. Out? Hell, where to? Wanhua realm. What for? Soul fusion. Su-yun simply spat out these two words. When these two words came out, the sword ancestor's soul immediately understood. I do indeed feel that the Wanhua realm has my soul. From what you said, I'm afraid you have already met him. That's right. Su-yun nodded his head. Ancestor, there is no time to lose. Quickly follow me and leave this place in case something happens. Go. It's extremely easy for you, but for me, it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The sword ancestor's soul said coldly. After my soul was separated, one of my souls fell here, causing a great calamity and almost destroyed this place. However, the fall of my soul attracted the attention of the tyrants, and a saint led 72 experts here, wanting to capture me and provide me for his cultivation. In order to prevent my soul from being destroyed, I used the last of my power to create an inner world, which is also this world, and temporarily hid myself here. So this is the place created by the sword ancestor. The appearance of the inner world attracted the attention of the saint. Although he did not know the exact location of this world, he could roughly guess that it was in this generation. Thus, he set up 98,000 array points that covered this area. Once I walk out of the inner world, the array point will be activated, and he will arrive here in a breath's time to capture me. What? Hearing that, Su Yun was extremely shocked. Senior, it should have been many years since you came here, right? Has the saint still not given up? The sword ancestor's soul coldly snorted. How could he give up so easily? If he were to devour me, it would be enough to cultivate for 10,000 years. Is that so? Su Yun frowned. As if he had thought of something, he asked, Senior, what are the array points you were talking about? Array point. The sword ancestor's soul turned his head and stared at him. Let's not talk about this for now. Tell me, how did you get here? Chapter 904. Crimson Moon Illuminating Mountain, the door to the treasure trove. Su Yun told the sword ancestor's soul everything that had happened along the way. Naturally, he omitted some of the things that had happened along the way, so there was not much of a difference between saying them and not saying them. Hearing that, the sword ancestor fell into silence. If this was a hiding place that the sword ancestor had created, why would there be a Tao sect? And there was a key? Su Yun was suspicious. It seems like this place is no longer safe. After a long while, the sword ancestor raised his head and said coldly, Why do you say that? The Crimson Moon Illuminating Mountain is a phenomenon. I am just a wisp of soul. I do not have the means to open up a world. The reason why I was able to create this inner world back then was actually because I borrowed the power of the Crimson Moon. The supreme expert knew this, so he left behind a door, but this door was not a door that led to this place, but a door that did not have any direction, but this door would automatically lock onto this independent space. And without a doubt, this door has locked onto my independent space and is precisely embedded. The door is successfully embedded. My independent space already has the conditions to enter. I'm afraid that the supreme expert already knows if my guess is not wrong. The supreme expert is about to arrive. So it's like this. Then what's with the key? Opening the door is actually to inform the supreme expert. The key is just a signal that he casually threw down. No matter what method you use to open it, that person will know. If we don't open the door, he might not know. Hearing that, Su Yun's face became extremely gloomy. Since that's the case, Senior, quickly follow me and leave. I can't win. The sword ancestor said coldly. That person will probably arrive here in 30 breaths of time. The only way is to fight. Escaping is definitely not possible, kid. Although I do not think highly of you, but since you're a disciple of my sword sect, then quickly leave in case you get implicated and lose your life. Ugh, is the other party very strong? At least at the peak of the spirit sage. The sword ancestor said seriously. That powerful? If I were at my peak, it would only be a matter of a finger. However, right now I am just a strand of soul, so I am definitely not his match. Is that so? Ancestor, you should know my purpose for coming here, right? Su Yun took a deep breath, a trace of seriousness appearing in his eyes. The sword faction owes me a great debt of gratitude. You're not only my senior, but also my ancestor. How can I abandon you and leave? Maybe this is the first time you've met me, and you don't know me very well, but let me tell you, I, Su Yun, have a stubborn temper. Once I've decided on something, I will not change it, and I will not leave anyone I care about behind. With that, he turned around and waved his hand. A black light flashed across the sword sheath, and the pitch-black death sword was held tightly in his hand. The sword master was stunned. This sword, ancestral master, retreat for now. Once I restrain that person, you can take the opportunity to leave. Su Yun said. Suya naturally would not leave so easily. If he was afraid of death, why would he come here? What's more, if the soul of the sword ancestor couldn't be saved, what would happen to the souls in the future? Were they all going to give up halfway? Suyin was not a stubborn person, but at certain times, he would choose the path that he thought was right. If he did not have the limitless sword arts, Suyin might not even be able to walk out of the Su family. You brat, I think not only are you stubborn, you're also stupid, the sword ancestor said coldly. But his tone was no longer just cold. There was also a trace of gratification and helplessness. Haha, if I'm stupid, then I'm stupid. Since I don't know the opponent's exact strength, how can I escape like this? At least I have to spar with him. What if I can? Suyin laughed. What if he had fought? The sword ancestor's pupils dilated slightly. This was the first time he had heard such a strange thing. Who would joke around with their own life? Get a try? If he wasn't careful, he would lose his life. I said a few words to you, and you're still so excited? Hurry up and scram. Don't stay here and get in my way. Scram. The sword ancestor's attitude suddenly became unyielding and growled for Su Yun to leave. Hearing that, Su Yun was about to say something, but then a terrifying explosion suddenly sounded from outside the cave. Boom! The entire crystal cave shook. Su Yun and the sword ancestor looked over at the same time, only to see a few figures staggering in. It was the group of four that Su Yun had arranged to guard the door. Their faces were filled with fear as they ran over. As they ran, they looked behind them, as if there was an extremely terrifying existence chasing after them. Lord, save me! When the female cultivator in the group of four saw Su Yun, it was as if she had seen her savior and shouted loudly. Su Yun frowned, but did not make a sound. On the other hand, the sword ancestor bellowed, Su Yun, be careful! Whoosh! A strong gust of wind blew over, catching the four of them off guard. They were directly blown away and fell heavily on the ground. Two of them had already fainted, and the other two were also vomiting blood. They looked extremely miserable and miserable. Su Yun and the sword ancestor's soul did not move at all, but the two of them could feel the powerful energy contained in the qi. A whole 30 breaths, no more, no less. Master Ancestor's prediction is indeed accurate. Su Yun said. The sword ancestor was silent for a moment, then shook his head and said coldly, You brat, if you don't leave before, it's too late to leave now. When the time comes, don't regret it. I'll cover your retreat later. Be careful, the sword ancestor said in a deep voice. She took a few steps forward and stood in front of Su Yun. Su Yun looked at him blankly. Only now did he realize that the sword ancestor's soul's personality was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. Was this the only side of the sword ancestor's heart? The strange gust of wind blew over, and not long after, it dissipated. Unknowingly, a few figures appeared in front of Su Yun and the sword ancestor. These people came without a sound, and their auras were hard to detect. Their cultivation was extremely terrifying. They all wore dark green clothes, and their leader was in existence with a deer-like head and a human body. He had a pair of dark green eyes, and there were 2 large antlers on his forehead. His hair was dark green, and there was a layer of faint dark green gas circling around his body. Other than this person who was rather strange, the others were considered normal. The originally quiet crystal cave suddenly became lively. Oh, the existence that I've been searching for so many years, is it you? The deer-headed existence raised his dark green eyes, stared at the sword ancestor's soul, and said indifferently, I never thought that the supreme expert of the true demon realm would descend. The sword ancestor snorted and said indifferently, This aura, I seem to have seen it somewhere before. The deer-headed person sniffed the aura in the air, and after a moment of silence, he raised his head and said, Are you limitless sword ancestor? Oh, there's still someone who knows me? I never thought that it would really be you. The deer-head man revealed a shocked expression. His pupils dilated several times. A hint of fear flashed across his face, but he quickly returned to normal. He took a light breath and said softly, I never thought that the person I was searching for was actually Sword Ancestor. Hee hee. Although you were Sword Ancestor, I feel that you're different from the existence I admired back then. Your aura and strength are already extremely weak. If my guess is not wrong, you must have been severely injured, right? I only have a wisp of my soul left, the Sword Ancestor said without hiding anything. So that's how it is. The deer head man heaved a sigh of relief. If it was you in the past, I wouldn't dare to stand here, but now is different. Since you only have a wisp of your soul left, I have nothing to be afraid of. Back then, when I caught your traces, it was already a shocking person. Such a mysterious soul force. It must be the soul of a saint in trouble, Lord Sword Ancestor. If you are willing to obediently submit to me today, I can promise you that I will preserve a trace of your consciousness, seal it in the stone, and not let you disappear forever. What do you think? He said it very lightly, as if he was bestowing a great gift to the Sword Ancestor. Hearing that, the Sword Ancestor's eyes immediately burned with anger. Just as he was about to speak, Su Yun, who was beside him, laughed and said clearly, "Leave a trace of consciousness in the stone? Do you want to be a stone? If that's the case, you might as well die." The deer-head man seemed to have just noticed Su Yun. He turned and stared at him and said indifferently, "Who are you?" "The successor of the limitless sword arts." Successor? That person was slightly shocked, as if he was afraid of this sword technique. "I'm afraid you'll have to make a wasted trip today, because you can't touch Sword Ancestor," Su Yun said. "You want to stop me?" The deer-head man snorted. "Brat, I caught it. You should also have the cultivation of Spirit Sage, right? However, it is impossible for you to touch me just by relying on the Spirit Sage. And to contend against me, you have to at least be a spirit immortal." Spirit Sage? Hearing the deer-head man's words, the Sword Ancestor was secretly shocked. In fact, the power of this strand of soul was even weaker than the one in the Wanhua realm. The Limitless Sword sect was created in the Sky Martial Continent, so the Sword Ancestor was well aware of what kind of realm it was. However, how could a realm like that produce a Spirit Sage? The Sword Ancestor wouldn't believe it, even if he was beaten to death. However, the truth was right in front of his eyes. For this brat to be able to come here, how could he be an ordinary person? Hee hee, what you said is funny. Could it be that the only way to measure a person's strength is to rely on his cultivation? Su Yun laughed. Then what do you think, other than cultivation, is there anything else that is stronger than me? Many people? Or magic treasure is stronger? The deer-head man snorted and said coldly, "I hate reckless things like you the most. You clearly can't beat me, but you still want to force yourself. You don't know what's good for you. Then what do you want to do with such a person?" Su Yun said, "What else can I do?" The deer-head man waved his hand and said solemnly, "Naturally, erase it." With a raise of his hand, two people immediately jumped out from behind and attacked Su Yun. Chapter 905. At the moment, he was not in a hurry. Not many people knew about this place, and even if they knew, they would not be able to enter easily. He had already sealed the place, and the current Su Yun and Sword Ancestor would not be able to escape even if they had wings. The auras of these two spirit cultivators were abnormally strong. They attacked from the left and right, causing a violent gust of wind to blow. Facing one of these people was extremely troublesome, let alone two. However, Su Yun did not reveal the slightest bit of panic. He quietly looked at the two people who were rushing over, his face calm like an ancient well. It was as if he did not put the two of them in his eyes at all. Seeing how calm Su Yun was, the deer-head man's heart skipped a beat. He felt that something was wrong. Su Yun raised the death sword in his hand and looked at the two people who were rushing over. Just as the two of them got close, in a split second, Su Yun, who was standing there, suddenly moved. He immediately raised the sword in his hand and slashed at one of them. He did not use any dazzling profound technique, nor did he use any sharp sword techniques. It was just a very ordinary slash. Could this hurt anyone? Doubt surfaced in the deer-head man's eyes. He was well aware of the strength of his two subordinates. With such an attack, it was impossible for them to injure him at all. Humph! From the looks of it, he was just a good-looking guy. At best, he was just an empty shell. Boring. The deer-head man said coldly, His eyes looking at Su Yun were filled with disdain. In his opinion, this person was just wasting time. Uft, uft. Right at this moment, two clear and melodious voices rang out. Then, an eye-popping scene appeared. The two spirit cultivators who were rushing towards Su Yun suddenly seemed to have lost their center of gravity. Their bodies rushed forward due to inertia and finally fell heavily to the ground. What? The deer-head man's eyes widened as he looked at the scene in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. The two spirit cultivators were already dead, but what was surprising was that the two of them no longer had any profound chi in their bodies. Their upper bodies had been cut open, and their hearts had been cut into two. Because the sword was too fast, blood flowed out after 10 breaths of time. Instant kill. It was a complete instant kill. He couldn't be any more dead. How is this possible? Those two people are also close to the spirit sage, but they were actually killed in one move. The spirit cultivator behind the deer-head man cried out in alarm and could not help but retreat. Su Yun's move had completely intimidated everyone present. The deer-head's eyes widened, and he was speechless for a long time. The gap between before and after was just too big. No one could accept such a situation. On the other hand, Sword Ancestor sensed something strange. He looked at the robe on Su Yun's body with a profound look, shook his head, and snorted. No wonder this brat dares to be so bold. So he has a divine object on him. Su Yun had instantly killed the two people from the deer-head leader's side, and had already revealed his strength. The deer-head leader did not dare to be careless. He knew that this person was not ordinary. If he still looked down on him, he would only suffer a greater loss. All right, it seems that you have some ability, but don't think that you can protect the Sword Ancestor like this. Since I'm here today, I won't go back empty-handed. With that, the deer-head man walked straight towards Su Yun. From the looks of it, he was planning to make a move himself. The deer-head man stretched out his hand and reached for a bag hanging on his waist. Very quickly, he took out a branch. The branch was rather straight, and there was a green leaf on the branch. It did not look conspicuous, but this thing was his weapon. Since you use the sword, your understanding of the sword must be very unique. Perhaps you do not know, but at that time, I secretly went to find the Sword Ancestor, intending to become his disciple and learn the limitless sword arts. But at that time, the Sword Ancestor was fighting with the supreme expert. I did not dare to get close, and was even more shocked by the terrifying power of the Sword Ancestor. So I did not dare to think about the limitless sword arts. But today, let me find the soul of the Sword Ancestor. If I absorb his soul and occupy his consciousness, I will definitely be able to instantly master all of the Sword Ancestor's sword techniques, including the limitless sword arts. If I obtain this technique, I, Lu Ming-san, will be invincible in the world at that time, not to mention dominating the true demon realm. I am afraid that all the realms will be in my pocket. The deer-head man called Lu Ming-san waved the branch in his hand and said solemnly, "Make your move. Let me see how far you have cultivated the limitless sword arts. I am untalented and have poor talent, so I have not trained the sword technique to a very deep level. On the other hand, you, just by looking at the Sword Ancestor's appearance, your heart feels a chill, and you have no confidence at all. Why should I, Su Yun, be afraid of such a person? All right, I also want to tell you, even if you devour Master Ancestor's soul today, you will not be able to learn all of the Sword Ancestor's sword techniques, because what is here is only a soul of the Sword Ancestor's soul." Su Yun said, holding onto the death sword. He walked towards Lu Mingsan step by step. Even if it's just a strand of night, it's enough. After I take this strand, I will go and get the others. One day, I will become another Sword Ancestor. As Lu Mingsan spoke, he twisted his arm, and the slender branch immediately shot out a large number of thorns. Following his wave, they shot straight towards Su Yun. The branch was not long, but when it moved, it quickly extended, and in the blink of an eye, it was already more than 10 feet long, and the thorny branch flew towards Su Yun's face. Whiz! The death sword was so fast that it seemed to be invisible and directly swung over. At the same time, a large number of flying swords flew out from the sword sheath behind Su Yun. Like spirits dancing in the air, they scattered and formed a net, wrapping around the deer headman. And when they got close, they immediately retracted the net, and the sharp sword tip directly pierced towards him. Limitless sword arts. The spirit cultivators all cried out in alarm. They never thought that these people would know of this sword technique. The deer headman's face darkened, but he did not panic. His power did not dissipate, and continued to attack Su Yun. The tree branch was already close to the death sword. In the battle between wood and iron, anyone with a discerning eye would already know the result. But the current situation was not like that. Just as the tree branch touched the death sword's blade, it suddenly exploded. The entire tree branch instantly burst out with a large number of branches and leaves, two of which intersected and blocked the death sword's blade, while the other branches fiercely pierced towards Su Yun's chest. Su Yun was stunned. His eyes quickly swept across, and he realized that the extremely sharp death sword could not cut the tree branches. He immediately retreated, avoiding the piercing branches and leaves. Seeing that, Lu Mingsan immediately rolled and dodged the flying swords. Dong, dong, dong. The flying sword fiercely smashed into the ground, causing the crystal ground to crack, and the rumbling sounds did not stop. However, the flying swords were all controlled by Su Yun, and their attacks would not stop just like that. After they pierced into the ground, they once again flew into the air and continued to attack Lu Mingsan. Myriad twining branches. Lu Mingsan waved the tree branch in his hand, and another strange object appeared on the tree branch. But this time, it was not branches and leaves, but a large number of vines. These vines were like spirit snakes, grabbing towards the air, directly wrapping around the flying swords, trapping them all. Although Su Yun was a spirit sage, in terms of cultivation, he was not as strong as Lu Mingsan. With the flying sword being controlled, it was extremely difficult to break free. This tree branch was extremely strange. Such a sharp sword and profound chi could not break it. For the current plan, he could only rely on the attribute to restrain it. Su Yun snapped his fingers. The finger seals in his hands changed, and the swords that were entangled by the vines immediately lost their power and lost the control of the profound chi. But at the same time, his left hand wiped the sword sheath, and in a short while he pulled out an incomparably pale and blazing sharp sword. When this sword appeared, the temperature of the entire cave rose by a few degrees, and the temperature continued to rise, as if it was going to melt the entire cave. This is the Tribulation Fire Sword. Sword Ancestor frowned. This brat had actually conquered so many swords. Su Yun took out the Tribulation Fire and immediately threw it out. At the same time, the Death Sword also flew out. The two swords circled in the air one after the other, and did not immediately rush towards the deer headman. The deer headman's eyes were filled with doubt. He did not know what Su Yun was doing, but he did not dare to act rashly. The Death Sword was like a rampaging bull, constantly striking the Tribulation Fire Sword. And at the moment, the Tribulation Fire Sword was like a container that stored energy. Every time the Death Sword controlled by the profound chi attacked, it would shake. At first it would scurry around in the air, but later on, its speed slowed down, and the sword body that was originally trembling also calmed down. Even though he was extremely far away, Lu Mingsan could still smell the terrifying power of the Tribulation Fire Sword. Not good. This guy must be using some incredible move. Lu Mingsan secretly snorted. At this moment, he did not dare to endure anymore. He retracted the tree branch and rushed towards Su Yun. The flying swords that were trapped by the vines also fell to the ground, making walala walala sounds. Lu Mingsan was not courteous at all. As he neared Su Yun, the tree branch quickly shook a few times, and a black and white yin-yang pattern started to revolve around the tree branch. The more it revolved, the brighter it became, and the more it revolved, the more dazzling it became. Crack! Lu Mingsan let out a low roar. Crack! In an instant, the entire crystal cave split open. The ground split open, the mountain walls split open, and the rocks split open. Especially on Su Yun's side, there was almost nothing intact, as if this place had just been baptized by the end of the world. However, Su Yun was completely unharmed. without the slightest injury. What? Lu Mingsan was extremely shocked. This was a mental technique equivalent to the words of a god. As long as it was activated, anyone or anything could not avoid it. But why did this guy ignore it? Could it be that this person was immune to mental techniques? Tribulation fire. Su Yin raised his head and stared at Lu Mingsan. His move had already been completed. He immediately jumped up, grabbed the death sword in the air, and fiercely slapped the tribulation fire sword that seemed to have frozen in the air. Clang! The sword body of the death sword smashed onto the hilt of the tribulation fire sword. In an instant, the tribulation fire shot out. The firepower in its entire body erupted. Like a roaring dragon, it swallowed Lu Mingsan. His imposing manner was like a rainbow. Chapter 906. Looking at the incoming flame dragon, Lu Mingsan's eyes widened to the extreme. The incoming flames were unimaginably terrifying, as if a small sun was crashing towards him. Since his attack had been broken, he could only defend. Lu Mingsan clenched his teeth, holding onto the branch tightly. He quickly stabbed towards the ground. The profound chi erupted. Crack! The branch completely sank into the crystal ground, and in an instant, the crystal ground beneath his feet split apart at an astonishing speed. A large number of branches and vines shot out from within, and very quickly, a huge tree that was wrapped in vines appeared, completely enveloping Lu Mingsan within. This was an absolute defense, airtight from front to back. It was unknown what kind of treasure that branch was, but it could both attack and defend. This kind of defense was probably comparable to imperial equipment within the 5th grade. However, the flying tribulation fire sword seemed to have no resistance at all and instantly pierced through the big tree. A loud sound was produced, the big tree shook a few times and instantly collapsed, and Lu Mingsan, who was inside, was also blasted out, falling to the ground. The tribulation fire sword that was rushing down continued to fly, directly smashing out of the cave, disappearing into the distance. Everywhere it passed, it left behind a dense and scorching white flame, the temperature rising. It was extremely terrifying. As for Lu Mingsan, he was in an even more sorry state. His arm had been directly broken, and the flames on the wound were ignited. The bone-piercing pain caused his unsightly deer face to contort. With such a serious injury, Su Yin already had the absolute advantage. Upon seeing this, all of Lu Mingsan's followers were so scared that their faces turned pale. Su Yin took a deep breath, his gaze staring at Lu Mingsan. Without the slightest bit of mercy, he carried the death sword and walked forward. So strong, as expected of the descendant of the sword ancestor. But the move you used just now, was it not the limitless sword art? Lu Mingsan endured the pain and stood up, saying in a deep voice, "I created it myself." Su Yin said, "To be able to break through my defense so easily, the killing power of this move of yours is too strong. Is this the only move you've researched? The others haven't taken shape yet. Is that so?" Disappointment flashed across Lu Mingsan's eyes. "I still want to see other moves. Your sword technique might even surpass the limitless sword technique. I don't dare to hope for it. The way of the sword can be done as one pleases. There's no need to deliberately pursue it. All sword techniques have their own similarities. If there was no limitless sword technique, I wouldn't have this move. What was the point of surpassing them? Because it is meaningless." Su Yin said. When the sword ancestor heard this, his eyes lit up and he secretly nodded. "Well said." Lu Mingsan took a deep breath. "However, don't think that you've won just like that. I'm not that easy to defeat." After he finished speaking, he gathered a burst of profound chi in his right palm and wiped it directly towards his broken left arm, attempting to extinguish the white flame that was still burning there. But when the profound chi came into contact with the flames, it was immediately incinerated without a trace, but the flames showed no signs of extinguishing. How could this be? Lu Mingsan was incomparably shocked. This is the flame of the tribulation fire sword. If you're injured by this sword, you will be completely crippled. This flame will not be extinguished easily, and your wound will never recover. In other words, you will only have one arm for the rest of your life. The sword ancestor slowly opened his mouth and said coldly. As soon as he said that, Lu Mingsan's mind instantly collapsed. How was this possible? That's the truth. Lu Mingsan's body couldn't help but tremble. Impossible to recover. Impossible. How could there be such a weapon in this world? Impossible. Impossible. You're lying to me. He was almost roaring. Lie to you? Sword ancestor snorted. Then forcefully grow your limbs. Let me see how much profound chi you have to burn these tribulation fire flames. Lu Mingsan was stunned. Whoosh. Just then, the flames of the tribulation fire that was crazily eroding his arm suddenly disappeared. He immediately shifted his gaze, only to realize that it was Su Yun's intention. Immediately, he activated his profound strength and sent it towards his injured arm. However, no matter how ferocious the profound chi was, when it got close to the broken arm, it would all disappear into thin air. Although there was no flame, the temperature of his arm was extremely high, and there was no sign of it cooling down. This phenomenon was practically sentencing him to death. His eyes widened, and he felt as if his soul was trembling. Do you believe it now? Sword Ancestor said. Lu Mingsan's expression was especially rich. His face was already covered in beads of sweat, and his heart was beating wildly. He didn't know how many more tricks Su Yun had up his sleeves, but just based on this point, he didn't dare to contend against Su Yun anymore. After injuring someone, the wound could not be healed. Was there such a sword in this world? Even if he used all his strength to kill Su Yun, he would still have to pay a painful price, right? Furthermore, the current Su Yun was not easy to deal with. Lu Mingsan clenched his teeth, trying his best to stabilize his mind, and said in a low voice, "So that's how it is. I never thought that this time I would look at the sky from the bottom of a well and underestimate the people of the world. Your successor, Sword Ancestor, is indeed extraordinary. I admire you." With that, he retreated. Since Sword Ancestor has this person to protect him, then I will not seek trouble with myself. I have already given up on today's matter. Let's go. As his voice fell, Lu Mingsan immediately led his men and turned to leave. He definitely couldn't fight. Since he wasn't going to fight, leaving earlier was the way of the king. Lu Mingsan's confidence had long been shattered by Su Yun. Leave? Su Yun's eyes flashed with killing intent, his face extremely cold. How could he let Lu Mingsan leave so easily? If he didn't kill him today, he would definitely become a problem in the future. Su Yun was about to move. Sword Ancestor immediately said, "Su Yun, let him leave. If this person is not eliminated, there will be endless troubles in the future." Does Sword Ancestor think that he will give up? Of course not. But if we fight him here, it will not be good for us. I am worried that someone else will come over, so it is best for us to leave this place as soon as possible. Sword Ancestor said. His worry was not without reason. It was just that he was not clear about Su Yun's strength. Although Su Yun's cultivation did not hold the advantage, the profound technique and magic treasure completely crushed his opponent, especially the Imperial Battle Robe. It was enough for him to kill Lu Mingsan in a short period of time, without any effort. But since Sword Ancestor had said so, Su Yun could not refute. After all, Sword Ancestor's words were reasonable. Since that's the case, then Ancestor, let's go, Su Yun said. Sword Ancestor nodded, and was about to move, but just then, a series of clear footsteps came from afar. The two of them stopped in their tracks. Su Yun's face darkened. He raised his sword and stood in front. Someone else is here? It was definitely not Lu Mingsan. He was already injured. One of his hands was gone, and relying on his other hand to defeat Su Yun, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Furthermore, the current him had lost the determination to fight against Su Yun, and had long lost the will to fight. If it wasn't Lu Mingsan, then who could it be? Crack! An ear-piercing sound came out from all directions. Su Yun looked left and right, only to see that the crystals around him had suddenly cracked open, and the cracks were getting bigger and bigger, like a spider web. Not long later, the crystals above were lifted up, floating in the air, and quickly turned into particles disappearing without a trace. The crystals in all directions were the same. They cracked, shattered, and finally turned into dust, scattering between heaven and earth. What was going on? Su Yun's face congealed. There's the aura of the sword ancestor here. It seems like there's no mistake. This place must be related to the sword ancestor. Just as the surroundings were undergoing earth-shattering changes, a voice came from the front. Who? Su Yun asked. This voice is not the voice of the sword ancestor. The clear and melodious footsteps were still coming out, and in the midst of the commotion, the sound of the footsteps was still very obvious. In the blink of an eye, the crystal cave had been completely turned into rubble, and along with it, the blood-red valley. The entire valley was in shambles, revealing the scene of the giant valley outside. The valley created by the sword ancestor was broken. The valley started to shatter bit by bit, and the Kacha sound attracted a large number of spirit cultivators in the giant valley, and even some of the giants were attracted, barging into the world that was about to disappear. 100 meters in front of Su Yun, a man had appeared out of nowhere. This man's attire was especially strange. He was 8 feet tall, and his body was covered in blood-red armor. He was rather handsome, and his skin was slightly red. His eyes were like 2 deep wells, and his long hair hung down to his shoulders. In his hand was an extremely long tai dao. The edge of the blade was burning with flames, and it was slanted to the ground. The ground was almost melted by the flames. Yuan Jian, the sword ancestor said. Who is it? Su Yun turned to look at the sword ancestor. I used to be a formidable opponent. The sword ancestor said in a low voice. This person's name is Yuan Jian. He is a sword fanatic, and as far as I am concerned, his cultivation is extremely strong, and he might not be someone you can deal with. He is proficient in elemental power and can easily control wind, fire, lightning, and with his sword techniques, his power is boundless. And what people pay special attention to is his sword. It is called the meteor sword. It can be long or short. It could draw the power of the stars. It is extremely terrifying. Is this person also your enemy? He can't be considered an enemy. He can only be considered a madman, but there will definitely be no good things between me and him. Why is he looking for you? He hopes to defeat me, devour everything about me, and master my sword techniques. The sword ancestor said indifferently. This person used the sword competition as a reason to find strong sword geniuses everywhere to compete, kill them, devour their bodies and souls, and master the sword techniques of these experts. He lost to me 3 times, and I thought that this person would not come looking for trouble with me again, but I didn't expect him to still come, and at this time. He's quite a persevering fellow. I don't like his perseverance towards me. The sword ancestor snorted. Su Yun laughed bitterly and did not say anything. Just then, Yuan Jian suddenly waved his arm and threw out a round, bloody object. The object rolled a few times on the ground, dragging out a long trail of blood. It landed between the two of them, and upon closer inspection, it was Lu Mingsan's head. Chapter 907. He never thought that Lu Mingsan would be killed by Yuan Jian while he was escaping. Su Yun was slightly shocked. This person escaped in the face of battle. He is not worthy of being a spirit cultivator, and even more so, he is not worthy of living in this world. Thus, I chopped off his head and gave it to you, sword ancestor. Yuan Jian said indifferently. You used your deterrence to force him to retreat. He has already lost, and you are the victor. This spoil of war belongs to you. What the hell? I was the one who beat Lu Mingsan away. What does it have to do with sword ancestor? Su Yun could not help but curse inwardly, but he did not need Lu Mingsan's head. I only have a strand of my soul left, and my strength is no longer as good as before. The current me is not your match, and the sword techniques in my consciousness are also incomplete. The sword ancestor said indifferently. As long as you still have sword techniques, you will be my target. I will not give up on you. Yuan Jian said indifferently. Hearing that, the sword ancestor snorted. He already knew that this Yuan Jian was not challenging for the sake of a challenge. He was purely challenging for the sake of sword techniques. To say that he was a sword fanatic was an insult to the word. At the very least, a person who is truly crazy about swords would not take advantage of others. Su Yun knew that the battle with Yuan Jian was unavoidable. It was just that this person's strength was different from Lu Minsan. He was able to easily kill the escaping Lu Minsan, which meant that he was at least a spirit-profound immortal. As for what stage, it was hard to predict. Su Yun, give up. The sword ancestor spoke. Give up what? Su Yun frowned. His target is me. You can leave. There's no need to lose your life for me. The sword ancestor said. Hearing that, the corner of Su Yun's mouth raised into a smile. Seems like you did not take what I said to heart, Master Ancestor. This person is different from Lu Minsan. He is difficult to deal with. The sword sect has given me a favor. I will not leave so easily. Furthermore, I do not have the habit of abandoning anyone and leaving alone. Su Yun took a deep breath. His eyes suddenly filled with fighting spirit. Since the sword ancestor wanted him to leave, and he was unwilling to leave, then let's fight. There was no need to be apprehensive. No matter how strong the opponent was, without a fight, how would he know if he would win or lose? You are also a sword user. I believe you have mastered many powerful sword techniques. Yuan Jian's gaze landed on Su Yun, who was walking towards him, and said in a low voice. It seemed like the origin sword would not let go of anyone who possessed swordsmanship. I learned the limitless sword art. Oh, Yuan Jian's eyes lit up. There are also divine wind sword art, lotus star sword art, and so on. There are many sword techniques that are not inferior to the limitless sword art. If you want to obtain these sword techniques, then come and defeat me. Su Yun wiped his hand towards the sword sheath and pulled out the snow-white, beautiful lotus star sword again. With the death sword in his right hand and the lotus star in his left, he stood in front of the origin sword. Are you challenging me or provoking me? A trace of killing intent flashed past Yuan Jian's eyes. It was obvious that Su Yun's words had angered him. Both. Su Yun did not know what it meant to be polite. All right then. Yuan Jian raised the meteor sword in his hand and said indifferently, since it's like this, then come. I'll let you make the first move. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to make the first move. If I see that your sword technique is very poor, I'll be disappointed. He had already been completely infuriated by Su Yun's expression and words. No one had ever dared to speak to him like that. Maybe I won't be disappointed, Su Yun said with a smile, then closed his eyes, but quickly opened them again. But in the process of opening them, his body released a large amount of devil chi. Sensing Su Yun's dense, fighting intent, the origin sword also started to accumulate energy. The long blade in his hand suddenly released waves of blue light. It was extremely mystical, and the sky also instantly darkened. A large number of stars flickered in the sky. This meteor sword was able to trigger the power of the stars, so it was most likely that the origin sword had destroyed the cave. He was probably worried that the cave's obstacles would prevent his meteor sword from being able to display its full potential. He stared at Su Yun for a while, and without saying any more nonsense, he immediately raised his blade and rushed forward. Whiz! Su Yun only felt a gust of wind blowing past him. Before he could even realize what it was, the origin sword was already standing beside him, the long blade directly slashing towards his head. The terrifying force caused the blade to shake uncontrollably. He liked swordsmanship, but he used a blade. This person was really strange. Could it be that in his eyes, this was a sword? However, the moment the long blade neared Su Yun, the profound strength suddenly disappeared, leaving behind only a stream of brute force. Clang! The long blade stood on Su Yun's body, but he was unharmed. The origin sword was startled. He did not expect his attack to be ineffective against Su Yun. Whiz! The death sword turned into a black bolt of lightning and stabbed towards the origin sword's chest. The origin sword immediately tapped his feet and leaped backwards. In the air, the long blade in his hand quickly swung, and in a breath of time he had unleashed 1,500 strikes. His speed was not inferior to Su Yun's at all. However, such a fast attack did not injure Su Yun in the slightest. The distance between the two of them was quite far, so no matter how long the blade was, it would not be able to touch him. But why did he brandish his blade like this? Chirp, 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 chirp. Just then, a densely packed pentagram array suddenly appeared beneath Su Yun's feet. With him as the center, the array quickly rotated, and, at the same time, the stars in the sky also began to flicker. The power of the meteor sword. Su Yun, be careful! The sword ancestor shouted anxiously. You've lost! The origin sword called out softly, taking advantage of this time. He raised his blade and attacked Su Yun. Clang, 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 clang. Su Yun quickly brandished his two swords. The sword images almost surrounded the two of them, and a series of metal clashing sounds rang out endlessly. Although the origin sword had taken the initiative to attack, his moves did not have any killing intent. Instead, he had been defending the entire time. Catching this strange sight, Su Yun immediately understood that this guy was stalling for time. Sure enough, Su Yun was being restrained by the origin sword, and in the sky, the stars that were flickering suddenly changed. One by one, the stars suddenly released a bright light, like a blazing sun, instantly illuminating the night sky even brighter than the day. Following that, rays of deep blue light descended from the sky, straight towards Su Yun. These beams of light were densely packed, and there were a total of over 10,000 of them. All of them were aimed at him and fiercely attacked him. The power of the stars that filled the sky was like a collapsing mountain, directly pressing down on Su Yun's body, entering his body, forcing his internal organs, making it difficult for him to even breathe. At the same time, the origin sword also reacted. He waved the long blade in his hand, fiercely thrusting it towards the ground. The long blade's body erupted with a multicolored halo as the blade entered the ground. The halo immediately dispersed. With Su Yun as the center, it formed a dazzling net. Su Yun immediately dodged, but realized that his body was actually unable to move. Looking, the net had already tightly wrapped around his feet. Even immortals can't escape my elemental net. The origin sword held onto his blade tightly and said in a low voice. All of this was as he had expected. Dong, 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 dong as the beams of light descended. They transformed into a pillar of light that connected the heaven and earth, and Su Yun had long been devoured by the pillar of light. The heaven and earth shook, the stars rotated, and the destructive aura turned the world into an apocalypse. Is it over? Sword Ancestor looked at the scene with a serious expression. A trace of malevolence surfaced on his face. He clenched his fists tightly, quietly accumulating profound strength, and was about to make his move. He did not know if the divine object on Su Yun's body could withstand this attack, but no matter what, he would not stand by the side and watch. Not to mention that Su Yun was defeated, he would not be able to escape the fate of being devoured by the origin sword. Just the fact that Su Yun was the successor of the Limitless Sword sect, he would not be indifferent. However, before the Sword Ancestor could make a move, something strange happened again. The vast and terrifying pillar of light suddenly weakened. The light dimmed, and the thick pillar slowly became slender. Very quickly, the pillar of light disappeared without a trace. Looking at Su Yun, who was standing in the middle of the pillar of light, he was completely unharmed. The origin sword was startled. The power of the meteor sword is actually unable to harm you at all. He seemed to have thought of something. Previously, when he was fighting with Su Yun, the sword chi seemed to have completely disappeared, leaving behind only brute force. Could it be that this fellow had some magic treasure that could absorb other people's profound chi? Thinking about it, the origin sword heaved a sigh of relief and said in a low voice, "Seems like these profound technique are unable to deal with you. Since that's the case, then let's speak with the sword." With that, he raised his sword and rushed forward. His footwork was very strange. His left foot took a big step, his right foot took a small step, and without activating the profound chi, he just directly ran over. His speed could not be considered fast, but had a natural and sharp aura. Su Yun focused his eyes, holding onto his swords tightly. He took a defensive stance. Since the other party had given up on the profound chi, then the effect of the Imperial Battle Robe's divine power was not that great. However, since he did not use the profound qi, it gave Su Yun a huge advantage. Bada! Suddenly, the origin sword stopped in his tracks. When he was 30 meters away from Su Yun, he suddenly waved his blade, and an indescribable chill suddenly attacked Su Yun's entire body. Su Yun was startled, but before he could react, he heard a bang sound, and his entire body flew out. He fell to the ground and anxiously stood up. Looking at the origin sword, who was standing far away with his blade in his hand, his heart was filled with doubt. What was going on? The origin sword is so far away from me. If he doesn't use the profound strength, how can he suddenly hit me? The defensive power of the Imperial Battle Robe allowed him to be completely unharmed by this attack, but such a strange attack from the opponent was still a threat. Shadow kill. The origin sword suddenly bellowed again. He waved his blade at Su Yun, but at that distance, it was as if he was cutting the air. He could not touch Su Yun at all. Even so, Su Yun was naturally not that stupid and immediately dodged to the side. As expected, a gust of cold wind blew from where Su Yun was standing, causing the ground to shatter, as though he had suffered some kind of heavy blow. Su Yun's face darkened. He did not know what kind of move it was, but it was definitely related to the origin sword. Immediately, he raised his two swords and rushed towards the origin sword. Before he could even get close, the death sword danced wildly. The devil windbreak was unleashed. A large number of devil tigers rushed out, rushing towards the origin sword. The origin sword's profound qi was useless against Su Yun, but Su Yun's profound qi origin sword could not be avoided. Chapter 908. Yuan Jin seemed to have expected Su Yun to attack. He immediately changed his posture and leaned his body forward, as though he was ready to attack. Su Yun was like lightning, instantly approaching. The Yuan Jin also raised its speed to its limit. The slender blade instantly danced, transforming into countless shadows that wrapped around him. Clang, 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 clang. The two swords and one blade converged and intertwined, clashing crazily. The two of them were extremely fast, and the others could barely see them make their moves. Although the Yuan Jin's blade was long, the blade's body was surprisingly soft. Even though Su Yun was fighting close to it, the blade's body was still able to parry the incoming Death Sword and Lotus Star sword in an arc, which was extremely unique. What was even more surprising was that the Yuan Jin's strength and speed were not bad. Without relying on the profound qi, it was still extremely strong. The spirit cultivator's requirements for the physical body were usually focused on defense, believing that the physical body was thick and indestructible, which was the true strength. However, they did not know that true strength was in all aspects. The physical body's defense, strength, reaction speed, and so on, all belonged to this aspect. Su Yun activated the profound qi and used the divine wind sword technique to barely block it. When the Yuan Jin was close to his body, the Imperial Battle Robe was not idle either. It immediately opened up and wrapped the god power around it, crazily absorbing the profound qi in his body. Very quickly, the profound qi in Yuan Jin's body was sucked dry. But Yuan Jin's movements did not show any signs of stopping. His profound qi's exhaustion did not seem to affect him at all. His strength was still as strong as ever, and his speed was actually getting faster. Could it be that this was not his limit? Su Yun secretly clenched his teeth, feeling that it was a little strenuous. In this battle, he did not want to completely rely on his own magic treasure, just like the current Imperial Battle Robe. It could not make him completely invincible. In the face of such an opponent, he still had to rely on himself. Thought, break! Su Yun bellowed. The space between the two of them immediately exploded, and a wave of qi separated the two of them. Su Yun kept his Lotus Star sword. His left hand formed a seal, activating the limitless sword arts. A large number of flying swords shot out from the sword sheath behind him, dancing in the sky like spirits. Limitless sword arts. Yuan Jin's eyes lit up. Good. Good. This sword technique is truly exquisite. All right. With that, he took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Su Yun, raising his blade and slashing. Dang! Su Yun held onto the death sword with one hand, blocking the long blade. But the power of the origin sword was extremely huge. He was actually unable to withstand it. Taking advantage of the opportunity when Su Yun was suppressed, Yuan Jin formed a claw with one hand and fiercely stabbed towards his chest. His palms bent and turned into sharp claws, like an eagle hunting its prey. But just as the sharp claws were about to approach, Su Yun's figure suddenly scattered and disappeared without a trace. Yuan Jin was extremely astounded. He looked left and right, only to discover that Su Yun had already disappeared. He did not know where he went, and slowly, even the surrounding qi became void. Escaped? Yuan Jin snorted coldly. But the sword master next to him didn't think so. He only saw that Su Yun was still standing in front of the origin sword. He raised one hand, and that hand was glowing with light. He stared at the origin sword with rapt attention, while the origin sword stood in its original position like a statue. This is an illusion? No. If it was an illusion, how could it have such an effect? Illusions are ineffective against people who are stronger than you. But the sword master was secretly surprised. The origin sword had completely lost its ability to fight and was now standing in front of Su Yun like a living target. The sword master knew that Su Yun was strong, but he never thought that this guy's methods would be so powerful and strange, to the point that even the origin sword could not escape. Su Yun slowly raised the death sword in his hand. The sword tip aimed at the origin sword's chest and fiercely pierced forward. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. The sharp death sword actually did not penetrate his armor. What? Su Yun was stunned. However, his absent-mindedness caused his spirit power to loosen a little. Yuan Jin suddenly realized that a blurry figure had appeared in front of him, and he instantly reacted, fiercely thrusting his sword towards Su Yun. Dong! The two of them were once again forced apart. Su Yun felt that he was being attacked by an uncontrollable brute force, which was extremely strange. However, after receiving this attack, the fleeting shadow art had completely lost its effect. In the origin sword's consciousness, he still existed. In fact, this could only be blamed on Su Yun not being too familiar with the fleeting shadow art. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the origin sword to escape from the profound technique so easily. What a strange spell. Is this also your sword technique? Origin's sword said in a deep voice. Are you that eager to obtain other people's sword techniques? Have you already cultivated your own sword techniques to the large success stage? Su Yun said, practicing the sword is a very difficult thing. I don't want to spend all day and night practicing this boring sword technique. Only the sword techniques that I plunder are the easiest and the most powerful. Your sword techniques are so powerful. Once I devour your body and soul, your sword techniques will be mine. Origin sword said in a low voice. Then come. Su Yun took a deep breath and said indifferently, let me see if you have the ability. What an arrogant person. However, I have met many people like you in the past. Origin sword nodded and then walked towards Su Yun. Su Yun, don't be careless. Although this person does not train in sword arts, he has grasped hundreds of sword arts. You must be careful. Just then, the sword ancestor shouted from the side. Don't worry, sword ancestor. Su Yun will definitely do his best. Su Yun said seriously. I know your strength is not bad, and your talent is extremely good. However, to deal with this person, you can only use a sword technique that is stronger than him. Su Yun, use the limitless sword arts to deal with him. The sword ancestor said again. Hearing that, Su Yun was puzzled. Previously, when he used the limitless sword arts, there was no effect, so what if he continued to use it? However, since the sword ancestor had spoken, it was not good for him to disobey. He immediately distanced himself from the origin sword, flicked his finger, accumulated profound qi, activated his sword technique, and a large number of flying swords shot out from the sword sheath, rushing towards the origin sword like a torrent. However, the origin sword was not afraid in the slightest. He actually rushed forward without any defense, as if the torrent of swords in front of him was just air. Was he courting death? No. In the next second, Su Yun understood. The sharp sword struck the body of the Yuan sword, but it was unable to break it in the slightest. The armor on his body was also an incredible treasure, incomparably hard and terrifying. Su Yun took a deep breath, took out the Tribulation Fire Sword and all of its subordinate swords, gathered them together, and launched another attack. There is no need to doubt the damage of the Tribulation Fire Sword. The white halo of light dragged out a long stream of air. It was exceptionally dazzling, and the blazing high temperature seemed to want to turn this place into a world of fire. The Origin Sword still did not dodge. Perhaps he did not know the power of the Tribulation Fire Sword. As expected, the Tribulation Fire Sword and the subordinate swords fiercely smashed onto the Origin Sword's chest. The white flames bloomed like a flower, and the Origin Sword's entire body was sent flying by the huge flame power, directly falling into the distance and falling to the ground. The high temperature in the air shook. Su Yun stared at the Origin Sword. After receiving this attack, no matter what, his skin should have been lacerated, right? However, the Origin Sword that stood up once again caused Su Yun to be completely dumbfounded. There were still no wounds on his body, and even the armor was the same. There wasn't even a single dent on it. It was simply shocking. Why is this happening? What kind of magic treasure is this armor? Su Yun's expression was incomparably solemn. This is a pseudo-complete defense magic treasure. It's very difficult for you to break through. The Sword Ancestor said. Pseudo-complete defense? What is that? It's a Tier 1 Imperial equipment. The Sword Ancestor said indifferently. With that said, Su Yun was dumbstruck. First tier, Imperial equipment. Sword Ancestor. You said that this person's armor is a Tier 1 Imperial equipment? His eyes widened to the limit. Naturally, without waiting for the Sword Ancestor to speak, the Origin Sword had already spoken. He raised his long blade and walked towards Su Yun, the killing intent around his body starting to explode. Su Yun secretly took a deep breath and once again urged the flying sword to attack. Over 1,000 terrifying flying swords revolved around him crazily. However, the protection of the Origin Sword's armor caused his entire body, including his head, to be unharmed. It was as if there was a layer of chi cover that stuck closely to his body. If this chi cover could not be broken, he would definitely not be harmed in the slightest. The first tier Imperial equipment is the highest level of existence within the Imperial equipment, and also the most terrifying existence. Right now, you are facing such an Imperial equipment. Its entire body is unbreakable, almost invincible, but there is only one point, which is a fatal flaw. Only by finding this point can you break this Imperial equipment, but as for where this point is, I'm afraid only the Origin Sword knows. The Sword Ancestor said. The Sword Ancestor's words finally gave Su Yun an answer. Tier 1 Imperial equipment. He never thought that he would meet an owner of a Tier 1 Imperial equipment. Su Yun had a deep understanding of the power of the Imperial equipment. Back then, he had relied on the 7th tier Imperial equipment to pick out countless existences with higher cultivation than him. Sword Ancestor is right. This Imperial equipment of mine is not only a fake defense, it also does not need the support of profound strength. You are unable to find my flaws, so in front of you, I am an invincible existence. The Origin Sword, who was surrounded by the group of swords, said indifferently. He did not defend because he was the perfect defense. No matter how fierce the group of swords attacked, it would be useless to him, and instead, it would consume Su Yun's profound chi. Yin-Yang Manifestation Art. Su Yun snorted and activated his mental technique. In that moment, the space around the Origin Sword changed. He had lost his profound strength and could only rely on his own brute force and speed to fight against Su Yun. In the blink of an eye, he was dragged into an illusion by Su Yun, with almost no room to resist. This was also one of Su Yun's biggest advantages. With the Origin Sword restrained, Su Yun was finally able to catch his breath and think of a way. However, he knew that he would not be able to hold on for long, as the Origin Sword's methods were definitely not limited to the Imperial equipment. His own profound chi was also limited. He had to think of a way as soon as possible. Chapter 909. Su Yun, you don't have to worry. The power of the limitless sword arts is not something you can imagine. Seeing that Su Yun was extremely distressed, the sword ancestor spoke again. You can completely rely on the limitless sword arts to defeat this person. I can see that your sword technique is dancing in the air. It seems that you have already communicated with this sword, if I'm not wrong. You have already comprehended the first sword of the limitless sword arts, the all-spirits sword. You should not have learned the star sword yet, right? The soul that I met before was the soul of calm. He once taught me about the cultivation of the sword of stars. Su Yun said softly, his gaze still fixated on the Yuan sword. He felt that the Yuan sword had already moved, and his nerves were stretched taut. Then, didn't he tell you that one of the most powerful moves in the limitless sword arts is this star sword? The most powerful? Su Yun was startled. But then he heard the sword ancestor say, there is nothing absolute in this world, whether it is attack or defense. The limit of attack, there's an even stronger attack. And the limit of defense, there's an even stronger defense. The so-called invincibility you see now is actually just the limit of defense. If you can't find his flaw, then don't look for it. Just forcefully break through him. Forcefully break through? Su Yun was stunned. He had used all his might, but was still unable to break through the defense. Yet the sword ancestor said such words. Was this defense an egg? It would shatter with a single strike? Then what should I do? Do I use my ultimate attack? Of course not. The sword ancestor shook his head. Use an attack that surpasses the limit. An attack that surpasses the limit. Su Yun felt that his brain could not keep up with the sword ancestor's words. What he said was always so shocking. Su Yun, just do as I say. There's not much time. You have to concentrate. The sword ancestor said in a deep voice, circulating the heavens, the good heart, the 5 wheels look back, the 3 return to 1. Hold your breath and concentrate. The chi and I are born. The mind and spirit are gathered. The flesh and soul are gathered. The sword ancestor spoke very quickly, although it was only 4 words, but there was no pause. Su Yun did not dare to be careless, and immediately started to do as he was told. But the Yuan sword that was controlled by the illusion technique showed signs of waking up, which made him rather worried. Don't worry about Yuan Jian anymore. You might trap him for the rest of his life. Just do as I say quickly. Sword ancestor seemed to have sensed Su Yun's worries and immediately bellowed. Hearing that, Su Yun's face started to sweat, but he did not dare to think too much, and immediately did as he was told. These words were extremely profound. Su Yun did as he was told, and discovered that the energy in his body was circulating in a state of being one with the world. It was extremely magical. At the same time, the sky also changed. The sky that had just begun to brighten darkened once again, and a sharp aura rippled between the heavens and the earth. The star sword is not something that the meteor sword in the Yuan sword's hand can compare to. It activates the power of nature, the power of heaven and earth, and even immortals and gods cannot be compared to it. Su Yun, you are talented, and a genius in the way of the sword. Learning this sword is not difficult. What you lack now is an opportunity, and this Yuan sword is your opportunity. You and he both have powerful magic treasures to protect themselves. Their bodies are not broken, and what they lack is an attack. Whoever breaks through the other party's attack first will be the final winner. A swordsman is born to attack, and if one only defends, then why would one use a sword? Sword ancestor's tone became incomparably serious. Do you understand the chant I just said? I roughly understand. Did you do it? I did it. Very good. Sword ancestor nodded his head and said, then try to stop the blood in your body from flowing, stop your heartbeat, and merge your entire body into the heaven and earth. Search for the power of the stars, transform it into a sword of stars, and kill this person. All right. Su Yun nodded and immediately closed his eyes to do as he was told. When he activated the star sword, the illusion technique of the control element became weaker and weaker. The Yuan sword started to regain its consciousness, and the illusions around it gradually disappeared. In the end, the illusion technique collapsed. When Yuan sword sensed that all of this was an illusion, his first reaction was to jump backwards, to avoid being attacked by Su Yun's next move. However, When he leaped back 100 miles, he realized that Su Yun did not attack, but the sky and earth were in turmoil. A large amount of resplendent light floated between heaven and earth, like a sea of stars, filling the world. The sky was pitch black, the stars were resplendent, the earth was recovering, and all living things were full of vitality. The scene was exceptionally beautiful, making it hard to forget. This was accumulating a move. Yuan's sword immediately understood. He did not dare be careless. He stepped forward. His speed was astonishing. When he got close to Su Yun, his body split into a blood-red figure, quickly circling behind Su Yun and fiercely slashed at him. Didn't Yuan's sword no longer have any profound chi? How could he use a profound skill? Su Yun was stunned and could not help but be a step slower. This is his elemental power, not profound strength. Don't worry. Focus on activating your sword move. Sword Ancestor shouted at the top of his lungs. Su Yun's heart trembled. He did not dare to be distracted in the slightest. Even if the shadow had already raised his blade and slashed at him, he did not care about it. Clang! The shadow's blade slashed at his neck, but it was blocked by the Imperial battle robe. It couldn't break through the defense. Meteor fall slash. Yuan's sword bellowed. His entire body suddenly turned into a blood-red meteor, like an arrow flying towards Su Yun's heart. The killing intent was about to arrive. Su Yun did not dare to be distracted and tried his best to feel the power between heaven and earth. The power of the stars. That illusory power, that insufferably arrogant power, that power that no one could challenge, that power that ruled over everything. Right in this world, right under the starry sky, right beside him. Su Yun took a deep breath in the darkness. He felt as if he had grabbed onto something. He suddenly opened his eyes, stared at the incoming Yuan's sword, and suddenly waved the death sword. Crash! In that instant, the stars in the sky suddenly flickered. It was as if countless pairs of young girls' eyes were blinking in the night sky. This scene was extremely beautiful and spectacular. It could be said to be a miracle. However, after the stars flickered a few times, they immediately dimmed down. Su Yun's eyes widened. Idiot, you failed. Sword Ancestor was furious. Dong! A muffled sound rang out. Su Yun's chest was hit, and he was sent flying. Dong! 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 He crashed into the mountain wall in the distance, directly smashing the mountain into pieces. The creatures on the mountain instantly turned into ashes, and the remaining energy spread far and wide. Even the distant cities could feel it. Su Yun crawled up with difficulty. He felt the blood in his body churning. It was extremely uncomfortable. Of course, this was not caused by the Origin Sword. Although the Origin Sword was strong, it was still unable to break through the defense of the Imperial battle robe. After all, this was a divine object that was even stronger than a first-tier Imperial equipment, and the reason for this was because the activation of the Star Sword had failed. Su Yun, you must focus and completely grasp the power of the stars before you can activate it. You cannot be too hasty, and even more so, you cannot act recklessly. Sword Ancestor shouted. I got it. Su Yun stood up, stared at the Yuan sword that was rushing towards him, and once again activated the yin-yang manifestation art. Previously, after devouring the profound chi of the Yuan sword, the profound chi in his body was extremely abundant, and it was easy for him to use techniques. However, at this moment, the Yuan sword seemed to be prepared. He took out a small red cube from somewhere and threw it on the ground. Bang! The small red cube exploded, and a large amount of red mist floated, wrapping around it. The moment Su Yun's spirit wave approached the Yuan sword, it was immediately wrapped up by the red mist. It's a mental defense magic treasure. The Sword Ancestor said. The Yuan sword went around killing people to steal sword techniques. How could he not have any magic treasure on him? He was trapped by the illusion technique. How could he take this move again? Right now, his physical and mental defense could be said to be invincible, and no one could stop him. He immediately rushed over, the long blade releasing countless shadows, crazily slashing at Su Yun's body, the tyrannical power rippling on the blade. Su Yun felt like he was a small boat in a stormy sea. He could not calm down at all, let alone activate the star sword. The physical strength of the Yuan sword was simply astonishing. Although it could not break through Su Yun's defense, it seemed to be searching for something. Perhaps, in his opinion, the magic treasure on Su Yun's body also had a flaw. In fact, Yuan's sword was right. Although he could defend against his attacks now, if he continued to attack, when Su Yun's profound qi was exhausted, the protection of the imperial battle robe would also be exhausted. He had to activate the star sword as soon as possible. Su Yun thought, "Dong." At this moment, with another bout of brute force, his entire body flew out once again and fell to the ground. The concentration he had just focused was disrupted again. This is not the way to go on. The sword ancestor's face was filled with worry. This brat, although his talent is good, it is not enough. He needs to have sufficient willpower and a high degree of concentration to be able to complete the star sword under such circumstances. Otherwise, he will never be able to defeat the Yuan sword. The methods of the spirit cultivator were strange and strange. Some people were invincible their entire lives, but in the end, they were defeated by a small fry. If one were to judge a person's strength with only the naked eye, then he would be a weak ant for the rest of his life. "You're too weak. I can only take a beating." Yuan's sword looked at Su Yun, who was in a sorry state, and stood up again and said indifferently. At this moment, he had no chance at all to successfully accumulate this sword technique. The Yuan sword did not give him any chance. At a time like this, whoever's fighting spirit was crushed would be the loser. But right at this moment, Su Yun suddenly opened his eyes, and a strange look surfaced on his face. "Who said I can only take a beating?" As the sound of his voice faded, the cry of an eagle suddenly descended from the sky. Yuan's sword was startled. Before he could even react, his entire body was suddenly grabbed by a huge eagle claw and flew into the sky. It was the demon spirit hawk. Su Yun took the opportunity and stood up again. His nerves were tense, and his expression was focused. He used all his strength to unleash the star sword. Since the sword ancestor said that only this sword could break the Yuan sword's defense, then no matter what, he could not give up. Failure was not scary. He could just start over. If he gave up after failing, then he would truly lose. Chapter 9-10. In the end, the Yuan sword was still the Yuan sword. His true strength was not the magic treasure on his body, but the techniques he had obtained from devouring the spirit cultivator over the years. This person not only grasped sword techniques, but also countless other profound skills. When the demon spirit hawk grabbed him into the air, the Yuan sword immediately brandished the long blade and slashed towards his leg. The demon spirit hawk's strength was enormous. Its devil power was astonishing. It was a great demon puppet. Its own strength was not to be underestimated. Ever since it had changed owners, its cultivation had not reached its peak, but to deal with the Yuan sword that had already lost the profound qi, it was naturally more than enough. The long blade slashed at the demon spirit hawk's leg, but did not cut it off. It only left a deep dent on it. The divine hawk let out a mournful cry. Its two claws grabbed onto the Yuan sword's body, and then it tried its best to split it to the left and right. Kacha kacha, the Yuan sword's body released a crisp sound, but it was not dismembered. Instead, it struggled with all its might, and its small body swayed like a crazily struggling fish. Whiz! Suddenly, the slender blade released a star-like light, and in the blink of an eye, it struck the eagle's claws. Kacha! A crisp sound rang out, and for some reason, the long blade revealed its sharpness, directly cutting off both of its claws. The Yuan sword's body also fell straight down from the sky. This primordial sword is really impressive. He actually knows how to use the limits of his physical body. Sword Ancestor, who was below, saw all of this. Just a moment ago, the Yuan sword had forcefully gathered all of his strength into the hand holding the blade, as though he was staking it all on one throw to slash at the demon eagle's claws. The power was simply astonishing. The demon eagle was also caught off guard and was able to make the first move. After losing its claws, the demon eagle could only rely on the profound technique to deal with the Yuan sword, But the first-tier Imperial equipment on the Yuan sword's body was not that easy to break through. The quality of this Imperial equipment was extraordinary. It did not need the profound chi to activate it. With it, the Yuan sword would ignore all profound technique. Why are you still doing this pointless struggle? The Yuan sword ignored the eagle and directly fell down, rushing straight towards Su Yun, who was standing motionless like a statue. He was still accumulating his sword skills. Around him, the dazzling specks of starlight floated again. A large number of stars scattered in the sky once again, and the violent wind stopped. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have quieted down and stopped spinning. What kind of concept was this? Yuan Jian opened his eyes wide and looked at Su Yun. However, his entire body was glowing with light, and it was very dazzling as it reflected the starlight around him. He was like a god that had descended. That kind of inexplicable, throbbing feeling was enough to drive people crazy. In the darkness, there seemed to be something singing. It sounded like a young girl's low voice, but also like the deep feelings of a poet. The sword master's pupils dilated slightly, and his serious expression revealed a trace of surprise. He seemed to have seen something. It's this kind of show again? Fine, let me completely crush your confidence and make you lose the courage to be my enemy. Yuan Jian, who was falling down, had a look of disdain on his face. Holding onto his long blade, he rushed straight towards Su Yun. His aura was very sharp, and at that moment, he actually had the feeling that he was the number one in the world. However, the current Su Yun was as unmoving as a mountain. With his eyes closed, he stood there quietly, opened his mouth, took a deep breath, and then exhaled in an exaggerated manner. All the hair on his body stood on end, and all the pores on his body opened up, as though he wanted to completely merge into the surroundings, into the world. Yuan Jian frowned. At this moment, Su Yun gave him an indescribable feeling, which was completely different from before. The current him was completely unfathomable, as though his entire body was covered in a layer of strange mist. However, the outcome of a battle did not depend on the aura of the two sides, but on their methods and ability to move. Since Su Yun was moving, Yuan Jian would naturally not remain indifferent. At this time, if he were to interrupt any of Su Yun's profound technique, he, Yuan Jian, would have the upper hand. Dong! Just then, Yuan Jian seemed to have collided with something and released a loud sound. His entire body fell from the sky and fell to the ground. He crawled up with great difficulty and raised his head to look. He saw that in the air, a resplendent and dazzling sword had appeared at some point in time. The sword floated in the air. Its entire body was pitch black, but the body of the sword carried the Milky Way. Countless starlight flickered within, dazzling and dazzling, causing the world to lose its color. Yuan Jian looked at the sword and became absent-minded. What kind of sword was this? Su Yun opened his eyes again. At this moment, his eyes were not blood red, but a pitch-black starlight color. His skin also released a dim halo. He extended his hand, reached out, and grabbed the miraculous star sword tightly in his hand. The sword was incomparably huge, but when Su Yun held it, it had an aura that shook the world. Yuan Jian felt his heart beating violently. For some reason, he felt extremely terrified. Star Sword. This is the Star Sword. Why is it different? The sword ancestor suddenly sighed with emotion. Star Sword? Different? What did that mean? Yuan Jian was completely confused. What was the sword ancestor talking about? What the hell was this? Everyone has their own way of the sword, and this is my way of the sword. Ancestor, the limitless sword arts is still the limitless sword arts, but the person who comprehends it is different, and the sword techniques that he cultivates are also different. This Star Sword is the same, and what I am holding right now is my own Star Sword, so it is naturally different. Su Yun spoke. His voice was extremely loud and clear, rippling through the world. Hearing that, the sword ancestor's face was filled with astonishment, but he quickly revealed a gratified smile. It was hard to imagine that the sword ancestor, who was originally like a block of ice, would actually reveal such an expression. What he represented should be the cold side of the sword ancestor. Good, very good. Su Yun, for you to have such an awareness, it proves that your way of the sword has improved by another step. Whether it is the way of the sword or other martial arts, you have to rely on yourself to walk out step by step like Yuan Jian, who is opportunistic. His realm will forever be stagnant. He will never be able to experience the joy of comprehending a sword technique, and will never be able to truly use the sword in his hand. Now, Su Yun, defeat him. Use your own way of the sword to let him understand what a true sword is. The sword ancestor shouted. His voice was filled with anticipation. What bullshit way of the sword? In this world, only devouring is the strongest. You guys have spent your entire lives learning a sword art, but I've already leaped 1,000 miles and grasped thousands of sword arts and sword arts. Yuan Jian's face twisted. His voice was filled with a strange anger, as though the sword ancestor's words had caused him to feel endless fear, causing him to fly into a rage out of humiliation. He roared and pounced toward Su Yun. Brat, since your sword arts have already improved, then don't blame me for being impolite. I will accept your way of the sword. Then let's try and take it. Su Yun's eyes that were like the vast starry sky stared at Yuan Jian. This is the second sword of the limitless sword arts. Star Sword. With that said, Su Yun raised his sword and swung it. It's useless. There's nothing in this world that can hurt me. You can't break through my defense at all. Yuan Jian shouted, his voice filled with confidence. The gigantic star sword followed the movement of Su Yun's arm and swung downwards. Following that, the resplendent starlight in the world started to tremble, and the stars in the sky also started to flicker crazily. An indescribable force instantly wrapped around Yuan Jian. Yuan Jian's eyes suddenly widened. This light was simply unavoidable. The air trembled crazily, and the resplendent light also trembled crazily. Following that, billions of rays of light from all directions instantly wrapped around him like a dumpling. Yuan Jian's entire body, from head to toe, was sealed tightly. It was extremely terrifying. Yuan Jian opened his eyes wide as he looked at the light that wrapped around him. Only then did he realize that these light rays were actually light swords the size of rice grains. Crap, he exclaimed in a low voice. At this moment, he finally understood what sword ancestor meant. This star sword was not a so-called sword at all, but the power of the stars that was triggered by the sword, a power that had already transcended the limits of what a human could produce. Slash! These rays of light suddenly tore apart. Yuan Jian's body was immediately torn into pieces, and he died completely. Even the first-tier Imperial equipment vanished into thin air in an instant. There was no way to resist. No one could resist this sword, because this sword represented the power of the starry sky and nature. It was the power of heaven and earth. Although Yuan Jian was a swordsman, he did not use a sword. Instead, he chose a weapon that was extremely similar to a sword. It was not that he did not want to use a sword, but that he was unable to use a sword because an opportunistic person like him did not have the so-called way of the sword. The sword ancestor stared blankly at this miraculous scene. The coldness in his eyes gradually diluted, leaving behind only a deep sense of gratitude. It seems like this limitless sword arts already has a successor. He let out a deep breath, looking as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Yuan Jian was instantly killed, and his soul immediately overflowed. The stars in the sky flashed once again, and an indescribable wave of divine power poured down, directly locking onto the overflowing soul of the Yuan Jian. Su Yun, if you want to obtain more swordsmanship, then devour his soul. His soul must have grasped all sorts of strange sword techniques. This kind of soul is something that I can't ask for more. Seeing that Su Yun wanted to destroy his soul, the sword ancestor immediately reminded him. Hearing that, Su Yun immediately nodded. That's right. Since this person is devouring the souls of swordsmen everywhere to obtain sword techniques, then today, I will devour his soul. With that, he shook his hand and removed the star sword. With a leap, he jumped towards the soul. Seeing that, the soul of the Yuan Jin panicked and immediately wanted to escape. But at the moment, he was only in the state of soul. How could he escape Su Yun's pursuit? In the blink of an eye, the entire soul was eaten by Su Yun. Chapter 9:11. A gust of black wind blew through the sea region that was darker than the night sky. Several golden light beams appeared on the horizon and directly collided with the black island in the center of the sea region. The appearance of these light beams in the ink-like night sky was especially eye-catching. Who? A snake-headed demon on the island immediately shouted loudly when he sensed the abnormality. However, just as he spoke, the immortal power that rippled out from the light beams directly spread throughout his body. His body was like a collapsed building, instantly collapsing. When the other demons saw this, they all turned pale with fright. "Ah, not good. There's a situation. Quickly inform the island lord. Someone is here to cause trouble. You guys stall them first. I'll go inform the island lord." Sounds of panic and fear filled the entire island. A large number of demons rushed out from the Black Island and directly attacked the uninvited guests. The peaceful island immediately flared up. However, one of the people within the light beams lightly clapped his hands. A gust of immortal power turned into a tree ring that descended. All the demons that came into contact with it disintegrated and died immediately. All of them were instantly killed. Such shocking methods simply drove people crazy. Just who were these people? They came here and started killing without saying a word. Could it be that they were enemies of the extreme darkness island lord? However, this place was so hidden. How did they find it? Moreover, the extreme darkness island lord had never offended anyone before. The demons stationed on the island fled in panic. With just a single encounter, these fellows' guts were already broken by the other party. They no longer had the courage to resist. No matter who it was, no matter what rank the demons were, as long as they rushed forward, they would not be able to escape death. Rather than throwing their lives away, it was better to escape first. These people wantonly slaughtering on the extreme darkness island naturally attracted the island lord's appearance. Not long after, a large number of black figures flew out from the center of the island and directly rushed over. Just who is it that dares to be so impudent here? These people rushed over and stood in a straight line on the extreme Black Island. Looking at them, these people all had beast heads and human bodies. Some of them were completely naked, while others had beast skins draped over their bodies. They looked ferocious and unsightly. The leader was a strong guy with a lion's head. This guy's muscles were bulging, and he was wearing black armor. He was the only one here who had clothes. He opened his golden eyes and stared at the light beams. He growled, "Are you the ones who are behaving atrociously on my island?" The roar was deafening, as if it was about to split open the sky. This sound was enough to show the anger of this lion-headed existence. "Kneel!" This was the reply to the lion-headed man. The demons were taken aback. Do I need to repeat myself? A handsome man walked out from the beam of light. He stared at the man with the head of a lion and the body of a man and bellowed, "Kneel, or I'll destroy you. You!" The lion-headed man flew into a rage, pointing at the man and roaring, "All of you attack! Take that person's head, kill!" "Yes, sir." A man with a tiger's head and a human's body immediately rushed towards a man. However, just as he moved, a golden wheel suddenly appeared in the air and directly wrapped around the tiger-headed man. These golden wheels were like the sharpest knives, instantly shuttling back and forth on the tiger-headed man's body. In less than 3 breaths of time, the golden wheel disappeared, and the tiger-headed man froze in midair. Very quickly, his body was like tofu that had been cut open one by one, and shattered into pieces one by one. In the end, it broke down and fell into the pitch-black seawater below. Fresh blood dyed the seawater into a flower. This scene shocked all the spirit demon cultivators. That was Spirit Emperor. It was as easy as picking a fruit to kill. The lion-headed man's eyes widened. His previous arrogance and tyranny had long since disappeared. At this moment, he could only look at the person in the halo of light with deep fear. "Now, can you kneel?" The man shouted again. His voice was filled with coldness and impatience. The lion-headed man didn't dare to hesitate any longer. He immediately landed on the ground and knelt down. His head was knocking against the ground, and he was completely scared out of his wits. "We submit. We submit. Please don't kill us. Don't kill us." The lion-headed man shouted with a trembling voice. The halos of light slowly landed on the ground. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be 7 men and women. However, amongst the 7 men and women, the leader was actually a young girl wearing a white robe with an indifferent expression. The young girl was extremely beautiful, as if she was a masterpiece carefully carved by the heavens. Even a demon would be attracted by her appearance. She turned her gaze and stared at the spirit demon cultivators with her bright eyes. She opened her mouth and said in a clear and melodious voice, "I did not come here to make you submit, but to make you enter the Tao." Huh? The lion-headed man was puzzled. He gathered his courage and raised his head. "Enter. Enter the Tao? Enter. What path?" "Supreme Divine Tao." The young girl said indifferently. "Supreme Divine Tao?" The lion-headed man suddenly realized something. "You are from the Supreme Sect." "That's right. But isn't the Supreme Sect?" The lion-headed man was stunned for a moment and immediately stopped himself from speaking. He looked at these people in confusion, not knowing what to say. "I know what you want to say, and I know what you are thinking. I can tell you, the Supreme Sect has not disappeared. It has always existed, and has always been working hard to purify this filthy world. But after the last Great War, there have been too many disciples of our Supreme Sect who have gone to that sacred world in advance. And they have gloriously completed their mission, but we have not. We still need more people to bear the responsibility that they have left behind. So I came here." The young girl slowly said. Hearing this, the lion-headed man completely understood. This woman should be the person in charge of the Supreme Sect. And the reason she came here this time was to forcefully pull the group of spirit demon cultivators from the extreme Black Island into the Supreme Sect. You are the Holy Maiden of the Supreme Sect, right?" The lion-headed man asked carefully. "This person is now the sect leader of the Supreme Sect. Don't you all be rude." The man beside him shouted coldly. The lion-headed man shuddered and hurriedly lowered his head. "We are willing to join the Supreme Sect, willing to listen to the sect leader's orders." It did not dare to resist at all. Every single one of these fellows was an existence that the extreme Black Island could not contend against. If it wanted to survive, other than compromising, there was no other way. When you join the Supreme Sect, you do not need to listen to my orders. Instead, you need to work hard for the glorious cause of the Supreme Sect, and work hard for the common people of the myriad worlds. The young girl, Sululuo, spoke out slowly. "Yes, sect leader." The lion-headed man immediately shouted, and the other spirit demon cultivators also agreed. In order to survive, no one dared to disobey the wishes of these people. "Very good." Sululuo nodded his head in satisfaction. After the last great battle, the Supreme Sect was no longer able to recover. She lacked disciples, so she needed to recruit people from all over and expand her strength in order to prepare for the future. "Sect leader Su, with the support of the experts of my immortal-seeking sect, you have nothing to worry about. Why do you need to recruit these mobs?" The handsome man beside him said when he saw that the lion-headed man had already submitted. "That can also be considered a force. But it's useless." "You can't say that," Sululuo said indifferently, then turned his gaze and continued to interrogate the lion-headed man. "This sovereign will ask you, is the entrance to the true demon realm under this extreme Black Island? Is it really the true demon realm? There are many entrances to the true demon realm, but there's indeed an abandoned entrance at the bottom of this extreme Black Island. But this entrance is blocked by the corpse of an expert. It can no longer be opened." The lion-headed man hurriedly said. "That's enough," Sululuo said indifferently. "All of you, quickly follow me to the true demon realm." "Why are we going there?" the man asked. "The 5 demon saints of the true demon realm are all extraordinary experts. All of them have the strength of the spirit sage, And in terms of the current situation, the overall strength of the true demon realm is even stronger than the true demon realm. And if the true devil sect in the true demon realm does not decline, the true demon realm will not be able to contend against it. But today is different from the past. The 5 demon saints are all talents if they can join the supreme sect and serve the supreme divine Tao. Then the new world will definitely arrive even faster. Su Luluo said, 5 demon saints. The man was startled. He suddenly thought of something, and his face darkened. Sect leader, are you talking about the 5 beasts that escaped from the immortal world? If it's them, we need to quickly capture them and hand them over to their master. This has nothing to do with me. What I am doing is to expand the strength of the sacred army to better purify the world. Su Luluo raised her jade hand and said indifferently to the lion-headed man, this time, you will follow me to the true demon realm. You all come from the true demon realm, so you're more familiar with that place than I am. With you leading the way, it will save time. Yes, Lord Sect Leader. The lion-headed man hurriedly replied. All right, let's set off now. Other than you, everyone else should leave immediately and head to the new address of the Supreme Sect to receive the baptism of the Holy Light. Only those who have sincerely accepted the baptism of the Holy Light are qualified to become members of the Supreme Sect. Only then can we truly wash away the filth of this world. Su Luluo said indifferently. Hearing that, the lion-headed man's heart jumped. How could it not know about the Supreme Sect? Once they entered, even if they were unwilling, they would still wholeheartedly support the Supreme Sect. However, they had no other choice other than compromising. It was death. This subordinate understands. Chapter 9:12. Shun Shueshua slowly opened his eyes, only to realize that he was in a call. The sky was filled with stars, as though it was already late at night. Where is this? Didn't I go to chase after Luluo? Why was he here? Countless questions filled Shun Shueshua's mind. You're awake? Just as Shun Shueshua was at a loss of what to do, a familiar voice floated over from the side. Whirlwind, a pair of big hands hugged her tightly. Shun Shueshua had yet to react to what was going on, but when she raised her head and looked at the person, she realized that the person who was hugging her was Su Shintian. Shun Tian, it's you? Shun Shueshua's eyes were filled with tears, and finally, he could not hold it in any longer and directly threw himself into his embrace, sobbing. It's all right, Shue. With me here, everything is fine with me. Su Shintian hurriedly comforted his wife, but his resolute face was filled with seriousness. Shun Shueshua cried for a while. Her eyes were red. She raised her head, looked at Su Shintian, and asked softly, Shintian, what? Why am I here? Didn't I go chase after Luluo? What? It's in this place? I don't know either. Su Shintian shook his head and said, the Martial Imperial Palace was attacked by the Immortals. It was in chaos. I was worried that something would happen to you and Luluo, so I went to the Sky Prison to search, and when I rushed there, I found out that it was already in ruins. I found a servant who was lucky enough to escape. He told me that you were heading this way. So, I followed the traces, but on the way, I found out that you were unconscious and could not return to the Martial Imperial Palace, so I found a random mountain to temporarily settle you down. Su Shintian said, where's Luluo? Shun Shueshua asked nervously. I don't know where he went. Su Shintian covered his forehead, his expression somewhat dispirited. Hearing that, Shun Shueshua's face immediately turned pale white. Luluo? Could something have happened to Luluo? Could something have happened? She said nervously, her delicate body trembling. Hearing that, Su Shintian immediately hugged his wife even tighter. Shue, don't worry too much. Luluo will be fine. You fainted on the road for no reason. If my guess is not wrong, it must be because of Luluo. She doesn't want you to chase after her, which is why she did this. Su Shintian said. Although he was not clear about the situation at that time, he knew that there were immortals following Su Luluo at that time. What was Shun Shueshua's cultivation? Could it compare to immortals? Following Su Luluo was simply courting death. Those immortals were massacring the Martial Imperial Palace. They were not good people, But Shun Shue was still alive. Didn't that mean something? Although Su Shintian thought that way, he was still unsure in his heart. After all, Su Luluo had been tortured by the Supreme Sect's Supreme Divine Tao, and had long forgotten about his family. Would she really care about this mother? Hearing Su Shintian's words, Shan Shue was startled for a moment, then wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes and nodded. Shun Tian, you're right. It must be Luluo's doing. Luluo definitely still cares about me. This must be it. She said it very softly and powerlessly. Su Shintian did not know if she herself believed this or not. But let it be. What he needed to do now was to quickly leave this place of trouble. All right, Shun Tian, where's my father? Shun Shue immediately turned his head and asked anxiously. Su Shintian smiled slightly. Don't worry, father-in-law's methods are heaven-defying. Although he does not have the cultivation of an immortal, he has the strength of an immortal. He will definitely be able to turn the situation around and repel the immortals. The martial imperial palace will not decline just like that. But there are too many immortals this time, Shan Shue said nervously. Shun Tian, I must return to the martial imperial palace to help my father. If my father... Something happened to my father. Shue, calm down. What can you do there with your strength? Other than distracting the experts of the martial imperial palace from taking care of you, you have no other use. If you go, you will die for nothing. Su Shintian immediately shouted with a stern expression. Shan Shue's entire body trembled, but in the end his eyes dimmed and he lowered his head. You're right. Even if I go, I will only cause trouble for my father. I can only blame myself for not wanting to cultivate back then. If I had listened to my father's words and obediently cultivated in the martial imperial palace, I would not have been as powerless as I am today, and I would not have let Luluo fall deep into the supreme evil sect, unable to do as he wishes. Shan Shue clenched her teeth so hard that her lips were about to break. Su Shintian's heart ached when he saw this, and immediately comforted her. Shue, you can't say that. No one can foresee the future. No one is omnipotent. You can do what you can. If you can't do it, why force it? Don't worry. No matter if it's Luluo or father-in-law, they will all be fine. But, God of heaven, could it be that Are we going to stay here and do nothing? Shun Shue said in a low voice. Su Shintian was startled. His gaze landed on Shun Shue's pale white face. He saw pain and sorrow flickering in the depths of her eyes. It was her sorrow and loss towards him. She hated herself, blamed herself. Her daughter and father were in danger, yet she was powerless to save them. She started to hate herself. This was an obstacle, and also a shadow. A cold light flashed past Su Shintian's eyes. He knew that he could not ignore this situation anymore. If not, it would create an indelible shadow in Shun Shue's heart. Shue, since you've already said it like this, why don't we go back and take a look? How about it? Su Shintian coughed and immediately said. Shan Shue was startled. She raised her head and looked at him in confusion, only to see that his attitude was serious. It did not seem like he was joking. God, go, no matter what, that's your father. If something were to happen, wouldn't that be a sin? Even if nothing happened, it wouldn't be a big deal for us to go back and take a look, right? Su Shintian laughed. Hearing that, Shun Shue's face that was filled with self-blame finally revealed a trace of relief. Divine Sky, is this really appropriate? Unless you don't want to look for your father, unless you are indifferent to your father's life and death. How is this possible? Shun Shue was anxious. Haha, I know what kind of person my Schwerer is, so you don't have to be too anxious. Su Shintian laughed. Seeing that, Shan Shue's face turned red. He did not dare to be embarrassed anymore. He turned and headed towards the martial imperial palace. Shun Shue's heart was finally not as serious as before, and Su Shintian heaved a sigh of relief. Actually, he did not know what was going on in the martial imperial palace. But even if Xinwu Huang could not hold on and escaped, it shouldn't be too much of a problem, right? As long as Xinwu Huang was safe and sound, then everything would not be too bad. Just that. What was going on with Luluo? From what those fellows said, Luluo seemed to have left with those immortals. Who were those immortals? Liuluo's friend? Why did he want to bring Luluo away? A series of questions completely messed up Su Shintian's thoughts. He realized that he was becoming more and more unfamiliar with this daughter of his. The two of them were very fast. Or perhaps it should be said that Shan Shuishua's speed was very fast. She seemed to be rushing towards the martial imperial palace without stopping, not resting at all along the way. And in less than a day, she had already entered the territory of the martial imperial palace. However, before the two of them could even get close to the martial imperial palace, they saw a few scattered figures fleeing towards them. Shan Shuishue and Su Shintian looked over and realized that these were all injured experts of the martial imperial palace. All of them were panicking. Seeing the two of them, they did not even greet them and only ran with all their might. Jing Chun, Dragon Elephant? You all, where are you going? Where's my father? Shan Shuishua leaped and flew in front of them, stopping two of the experts, and asked loudly. So it's Miss. When the two of them, who were still in a state of shock, saw the person who had arrived, their nervous expressions relaxed a little. They were all injured to varying degrees and were no longer suitable for battle. The woman called Jing Chun said in a low voice, Miss, it's good that you're fine. Quickly escape. The martial imperial palace. It no longer exists. What? With that said, Shan Shuishue and Su Shintian were dumbstruck. The martial imperial palace. No, it doesn't exist anymore. Shan Shuishue's eyes seemed to be in a daze as he stared blankly at Jing Chun. This time, the martial emperor ordered us to retreat. There's a group of people left in the palace as death warriors to stall the immortals, while the rest are fleeing in all directions. The power of the martial imperial palace cannot be completely destroyed, otherwise it will truly disappear into thin air. Miss, you should also hurry up and leave. Don't go to the martial imperial palace anymore, or else you won't be able to escape from the hands of those immortals. Long Xiang, who was at the side, said. Then, what about my father? Shan Shuishue asked anxiously. Lord Martial King. Lord? Long Xiang and Jing Chun both turned their faces away, their eyes downcast, and their mouths shut. Say something. What happened to my father? Shan Shuishue shouted at the top of her lungs, her voice trembling. Seeing the young miss like this, Long Xiang sighed fiercely and said softly, Lord Martial King. He chose to stay behind. Father. Shan Shuishue almost screamed miserably. She was actually about to rush towards the martial imperial palace. But just as she moved, she was stopped by Jing Chun. Miss, don't be rash. Let me go. I want to save my father. Let me go. Shan Shuishue's face was covered in tears as she shouted hoarsely. Su Shintian, who was at the side, felt his heart ache. He secretly gritted his teeth and reached out to pull Shan Shuishue back. Snow, calm down. Su Shintian growled. He had spent a lot of effort to calm Shan Shuishue down, but he never thought that it would be a waste of effort. How can I remain calm in this situation? If you rush over now, you will only be courting death. Don't make unnecessary sacrifices, okay? But my father, Shan Shuishue felt like she was about to collapse. She wanted to break free from the restraints of these people, but she was powerless to do so. She could only watch as the martial imperial palace filled the sky with smoke. Young Master Su, Miss has already entrusted me to you. I hope that you can treat Miss well. This is a place of trouble. It's better to leave as soon as possible. Long Xiang cupped his fists towards Su Shintian. We will temporarily leave this place, and then gather the scattered people of the martial imperial palace to discuss the matter of reviving the martial imperial palace. Of course, the current martial emperor's life and death are unknown. We still need to wait for news, so we will take our leave for now. With that, he flew off into the distance with Jing Chun, no longer bothering with the two of them. Seeing that, Su Shintian secretly took a deep breath, his face filled with helplessness. Chapter 9:13. Although Su Shintian and Shan Shuishue's position in the martial imperial palace was not low, their strength was not high. Now that the martial imperial palace was in chaos, Long Xiang and Jing Chun would not compliment the two of them because of this. After all, they could not help the martial imperial palace with anything, and the current situation was more important. After Long Xiang and Jing Chun left, many experts of the martial imperial palace flew out. Shun Shuishua's eyes were empty as she looked in the direction of the martial imperial palace. Her expression was already lifeless. She no longer struggled to go to the martial imperial palace to save Shun Wu Huang, but instead fell into Su Shuntian's embrace as if she had lost her soul. Seeing that, Su Shuntian felt extremely helpless. Today was truly a complicated day for Shun Shueshua. Shueshua, don't be sad. The heavens will help you. Father-in-law will be fine. Su Shuntian consoled in a low voice. He looked around. This place is still very close to the martial imperial palace. If those immortals were to chase after us, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape this calamity. Let's leave this place first and think of a way. Leave? Shun Shueshua muttered. Where can we go? The world is so big. How can it not be a place for us to stay? Although I, Su Shuntian, am not some kind of supreme expert, I can at least protect you. You don't have to worry about that. Su Shuntian said seriously. Shun Shueshua turned her head to look at him, and a trace of light finally flashed past her empty eyes. Perhaps other than Shun Wu Huang, the only person she could rely on in this world was Su Shuntian. Crash. At this moment, the sound of something tearing through the air suddenly rang out, followed by a clear yet indifferent voice. I think it's better if the two of you don't speak such nonsense right now. Quickly find a place to hide. Hearing that, Su Shuntian and Shun Shueshua were startled. They looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a young lady wearing a snow-white Blade Master outfit flying over quickly. The young lady was extremely beautiful. Her eyes were filled with heroic spirit. Her long hair was tied up like a waterfall. Her long ponytail swayed in the wind. Her cheeks were covered with long black hair. She held a slender and sharp sword in one hand. Her fair face was slightly red. Her breathing was also rather hurried, as if she had used too much qi. Seeing this person, Shun Shueshua was startled. Little sister, it's you. The girl held a golden wooden box tightly in her hand and hurriedly shouted, Go! Uncle is currently in my magic treasure. He is safe and sound, so you don't have to worry. Leave this place quickly. The immortals are coming. Ah! Shun Shueshua stared blankly for a moment, and then was overjoyed. Father is not dead yet. That was great. She almost instantly regained her senses, and a heart that had almost died came back to life. She immediately nodded, turned around, and flew with Su Shuntian. On the other hand, Su Shuntian couldn't help but reveal an expression of shock. Previously, in the martial imperial palace, this girl had said that she was going to save Shun Wu Huang, but she never thought that she would actually be able to do it. To be able to save a person from the hands of an immortal, this girl. What methods does she have now? Su Shuntian had something to say, but now was not the time to say it. The three of them dashed across the sky at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, they had crossed over several mountains. Where to? Shun Shueshua exclaimed. Of course to the ultimate martial world. Su Shuntian said in a deep voice. The ultimate martial world is the center of the myriad heavens realm. It is connected in all directions, and there are countless capable people. Although the immortals are strong, it is not easy to find us in such a complicated place. That's right. The young girl nodded her head. Then let's go to the ultimate martial world first, and ask Uncle to decide. All right. On Su Yun's side, after bringing the Sword Ancestor's soul out of the moon-chasing domain, he immediately rushed towards the ultimate martial sacred plane, striving to fuse this strand of soul with the one in the Wanhua realm as soon as possible. This way, with the two souls as one, the Sword Ancestor's strength would recover by quite a bit, and his ability to protect himself would be even stronger. After entering the sacred plane and paying his respects to the Master Subhoodie for a short while, Su Yun headed towards the Wanhua realm without stopping. Time was of the essence, and he didn't have much time to do anything else. However, Once he arrived at the entrance of the Wanhua realm, the sealed door stopped him in his tracks. There were no guards at the entrance, but Su Yun believed that the people inside would definitely know that he was currently at the entrance, and who knew how many pairs of eyes were staring at him from the shadows. I am the disciple of the Master Subhoodie, Su Yun, and also a friend of your realm lord. Please pass the message. Quickly open the door. I have something important to do. Su Yun shouted towards the Wanhua realm's gate. He did not dare say that he was the demon lord, in case he scared the people guarding the gate. Sure enough, after a while, a voice came out from the Wanhua realm's gate. Do you have a keepsake? I have the realm lord's item as proof. Su Yun took out the keepsake that the Wanhua realm lord had given him and held it high in front of the door. A moment later, the voice sounded again. Please wait a moment. After about half an incense stick of time, Gucha, 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 a muffled sound rang out, and the quaint door covered in vines slowly opened. A bit of green light leaked out from inside, and a fresh breeze blew out. It was refreshing and refreshing. Su Yun couldn't help but take a few more breaths. In the past, his breathing was mixed with a violent, profound qi and the stench of blood qi. Now that he could smell such a fresh breath, it was truly rare. He looked at the door and walked in. Wanhua realm, the grass was luxuriant, the birds were singing, and the flowers were fragrant. The blue sky was green, and 100 flowers were blooming. This place was even more beautiful than when Su Yun left. It seemed that after the last battle, the Wanhua realm lord had indeed seriously rebuilt the Wanhua realm. However, what shocked Su Yun the most was that behind the gate of the Wanhua realm stood an entire army. An entire army? Su Yun stared blankly at the scene, and suddenly felt that it was very familiar. Wasn't the True Devil realm the same? He had sent a large number of troops to guard the entrance to the interface. There were a large number of Rot-Tan armored soldiers everywhere, and there were also countless birds and beasts. Their cultivation levels were all different. Some were strong, some were weak, and everyone seemed to be on guard against something. Countless pairs of eyes fell on him from all directions, making him feel very uncomfortable. So, it's Lord Su Yun. We did not know that Lord has arrived. If we have offended you in any way, please forgive us. A middle-aged man dressed in green armor led a few soldiers and walked over quickly, cupping his fists toward Su Yun and said, "Those who don't know are innocent." Su Yun said casually, his gaze still sweeping left and right, and then asked, "I still don't know. What's going on around me?" The general stammered a little, but in the end, he shook his head and cupped his fists. This matter concerns the military situation. This general does not dare to casually reveal it. If Master wants to know the whole story, I'm afraid you still have to ask Lord Realm Lord. Oh, where's Realm Lord now? In the Realm Tree. This general has already sent someone to inform him. All right, I'll go to the Realm Tree now. Su Yun nodded. With a leap, he flew into the sky, and with his so sound, he flew into the distance and disappeared, causing all the generals and soldiers to be dumbstruck. If the True Devil sect sealed off the True Devil realm to prevent the immortal-seeking sect from taking revenge for the Supreme sect, then what about the Wanhua realm? Could it be that the Wanhua realm had also offended some incredible power? But the people of the Wanhua realm were easygoing, and the Realm Master did not seem to be a person who would cause trouble. So who could he offend? Bringing this suspicion, Su Yun did not stop and arrived at the Realm Tree. In Su Yun's impression, the Wanhua Realm Lord had always been a strange girl who did not smile. She did not seem to know what expression was, and no matter who she faced, she was always calm and collected. She did not know fear or joy, but she seemed to know what anger was. Maybe she was not good at expressing herself, but Su Yun still had a deep impression of her. When they arrived at the entrance of the Realm Tree, the Realm Master was already waiting there, along with the Prime Minister and many other ministers. Su Yun, long time no see. The Realm Master's melodious voice floated over. Long time no see, how have you been? Su Yun landed on the ground and smiled. The Realm Master only nodded, but did not say anything. This time, I have something to do. I will not stay in the Wanhua realm for too long. Realm Master can rest assured. Su Yun saw through the Realm Master's extremely obscure worry and said calmly, The last time the Wanhua realm was in chaos, it was all because of him. When Su Yun came to the Wanhua realm, he had turned the entire place upside down, and all the realm tree ministers were subconsciously afraid of him. You're too polite. I don't mean to blame you at all. The realm master shook her head and said, Then, what are you doing here? It's related to the sword ancestor. Su Yun said softly, Sword ancestor? I understand. The realm master said indifferently, Follow me. I will bring you to see him. Thank you. Su Yun laughed. The realm master turned her head and said a few words to Prime Minister Rome. She then turned and led Su Yun down the realm tree alone. In the southwest direction of the world tree, there was a mountain range with jagged rocks, and in the center of the mountain range, there was a lake in a mountain. This lake was enchanted by the realm lord, and from the outside, the lake looked like a mountain, but once one entered, it was a completely different world, a scene of a paradise on earth. This was the place where the realm master had placed the sword ancestor. When the two of them entered the lake, the white-haired sword ancestor was already standing by the lake, looking at the two of them. Su Yun, the moment you enter the Wanhua realm, I sense your aura. I never thought that you would actually find a strand of my soul so quickly. I really did not misjudge you. The sword ancestor laughed heartily, but his eyes revealed a trace of being moved. It was very obscure, and Su Yun did not notice it. The sword ancestor understood what kind of decision his soul would make when he encountered danger, so he could not imagine how many hardships and tribulations Su Yun had experienced along the way. This shouldn't have been something he wanted to do, but he was duty-bound to do so. Chapter 9:14. The fusion of the soul was completed by the sword ancestor alone. Su Yun and the realm master consciously withdrew from the lake. Su Yun waited in an empty space outside the mountain. But what confused him was that the realm master did not leave either and waited outside with him. Su Yun sat cross-legged on the ground, closed his eyes, and meditated, while she stood quietly at the side, quietly watching Su Yun. You seem to have something to say to me. Su Yun felt uncomfortable being stared at by the realm master, and could not help but ask. There was no need for the realm master to wait here. She understood Su Yun and the sword ancestor. Your strength has improved a lot again. The realm master looked at him with her bright eyes and said indifferently, That's all you want to say to me? What do you want me to say? At this, Su Yun scratched his head. He realized that there was nothing he could do to the girl, so he changed the topic and asked, When I entered the Wanhua realm, I saw an army set up at the entrance of the realm. Is the Wanhua realm on guard against something? Unexpectedly, when she said that, the realm master fell into silence. After a long while, she raised her head and said indifferently, To guard against an unknown enemy. Su Yun was startled. Who? I already said that it's an unknown enemy. How can I know who it is? Su Yun was a little speechless and said, Then how do you know someone will attack? This is the law. The realm master turned around. With her back facing Su Yun, she lifted her lotus steps and slowly paced. The peace of the myriad realms has lasted for many years, and all living things are the same. The world has been divided for a long time, and all living things have been divided for a long time, and all living things have been divided for a long time, and all living things have been divided for a long time, and all living things have been divided for a long time. Ugh, what kind of logic is that? Furthermore, how do you know that the myriad realms are at their peak? The realm master turned around and looked at Su Yun with a pair of autumn eyes that seemed to be able to speak. After a long while, she said, Su Yun, I can predict that you can resolve the crisis of my Wanhua realm. So how can I not predict this? Furthermore, there's an even bigger piece of news that foretells the upcoming crisis. What news? The destruction of the supreme sect. The realm master said softly. Hearing that, Su Yun's heart jumped. Indeed, after the supreme sect was destroyed, it had a huge impact on the myriad realms. But from Su Yun's point of view, there were good and bad effects. After the fall of the supreme sect, the ambitious powers in the myriad realms would definitely rise up bravely and fight for the resources that the supreme sect once controlled, crazily develop themselves, strengthen themselves, and then snatch and swallow other powers. Although the supreme sect was detestable, over the years, it had always used its deterrence to restrain the powers of the various worlds. causing them to not dare to act rashly. If the supreme sect was said to have thrown the 10,000 worlds into chaos, but in a certain sense, it still protected the 10,000 worlds. Although the Greater One sect isn't here, that doesn't mean anything. Let the myriad realms be in chaos. We just need to do what we should do. Suyin took a deep breath and said softly, "No one can stay out of it." The Realm Lord said calmly, "This time, it won't just be people from all over the universe who will be participating. Could it be that there are other existences involved? Who is it?" Suyin was confused. Other than the myriad realms, who else could there be? The more he listened, the more confused he became. He completely did not understand what the Realm Master was talking about. Although the Realm Master's strength was like the difference between heaven and earth when compared to the current Suyin did not dare underestimate her methods. How strong is the other party? After a long silence, Suyin asked again. "I don't know." The Realm Master shook her head. Suyin frowned. The unknown opponent was the most terrifying. He was alone. He was not afraid of the upcoming turmoil. But he had people he had to protect. Hu Qianmei, Su Qing'er. He had to do his best to protect them. If that was really the case, the ultimate martial world would not be spared. Looks like I need to make some preparations as well. Suyin thought. Crash. At this time, in the middle of the mountains, a sharp sword intent soared into the sky. It lasted for 5 to 6 breaths of time before it recovered. Seeing that, Suyin immediately followed closely. On the other hand, the Realm Master was extremely strange. She still stood at her original spot and did not follow him into the lake. Suyin flew over and landed by the side of the lake. The white-haired man who was sitting cross-legged by the lake opened his sword eyes and stood up. "Master Ancestor, how do you feel?" Suyin immediately walked over. "I feel good." The sword ancestor revealed a gratified smile. He raised his hand and clenched it, then laughed. "In the past, my 3 souls and 7 souls had all scattered, not to mention that my cultivation was in a mess. Even my emotions were very monotonous. Now that the 2 souls have fused into one, I have found a little of the feeling from before. This feeling is too wonderful. It makes people miss it." "Huh." The sword ancestor laughed out loud. He was in a good mood. "That's good." Suyin heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Suyin." "Sword ancestor, don't say such words. Since I am a member of the sword sect, it is only right for me to do something for the sword sect. I know that you are a person who will repay kindness, but sometimes you have to do things within your means. You are a good seedling. Don't ruin yourself because of your temperament." The sword ancestor said after hesitating for a moment. He could see through people and could tell that Suyin was a person of character. This kind of person was righteous and would take revenge, but in this cruel world, he might not be able to eat well. Suyin laughed, but did not say anything. He had lived 2 lives, so he naturally understood what the sword ancestor meant. "Master Ancestor, although there are 2 souls, it is definitely not enough. You should continue to rest here for now. In the future, I will find another soul, and you can fuse with it." "No need." The sword ancestor shook his head and stood up. "Now that I have fused with a soul, my strength has recovered quite a bit, and I can already find other souls on my own. Suyin, I will do the rest myself. But if you leave the Wanhua realm and are discovered by your enemies, how should you deal with them? I can already hide my own aura. How can I be easily discovered by others?" The sword ancestor laughed. "With the fusion of the 2 souls, my strength is already 1/5 of what it was back then. With this 1/5, I'm afraid that even the current you might not be able to easily defeat me, so I can go by myself." Hearing that, Suyin was slightly shocked. Just by fusing with a soul, could he defeat him? He was currently a spirit sage after all. For sword ancestor to say that, didn't that mean that he also had the strength of a spirit sage? Then what kind of methods would he have at his peak? With sword ancestor's insistence, Suyin could not refute him. After thinking for a while, he could only agree. Was master ancestor preparing to leave? Suyin asked. "After resting for a while, we will immediately take action. There is no time to lose." The sword ancestor said seriously. "Leave immediately? Why are you in such a hurry? This is the Wanhua realm, not my place. If I stay here, it will only bring more trouble to the Wanhua realm. although the Realm Master did not say it, but I know that she still wishes for me to leave. Now that you have bestowed me a soul, it is an opportunity. If I don't leave now, when will I leave? Su-Yun, you should also take precautions as soon as possible, and try your best to find a small world to hide in, to avoid the limelight. The Sword Ancestor said, the myriad heavens realm is changing. What kind of change is it? Who is coming? What exactly are you going to do? Su-Yun felt his mind in a mess. No one can predict it, and I don't know either. Su-Yun, I will leave for now. When I find all of my souls again, I will definitely return. The Sword Ancestor revealed a bitter smile. Although you are my successor, I can't give you anything right now. When did Master Ancestor become so polite? Su-Yun shook his head. Master Ancestor has already taught me a lot, and has even imparted the limitless sword arts to me. And this time, the Star Sword is even more so. You have just seen the Star Sword, so you are unable to fully unleash its power. In the future, you will need to study more and cultivate harder. Your future is limitless. The Sword Ancestor seemed to feel that he had finished speaking. He extended his hand and patted Su-Yun's shoulder, turned around, leaped up, and flew into the sky, shuttling into the distance. Lord Realm Master, please open the door. This lowly one will take his leave. The voice of the Sword Ancestor came from the sky. Realm Master, who was waiting outside the mountain, heard and nodded, immediately sending a signal. After that, he could no longer find any trace of the Sword Ancestor. Su-Yun stood quietly by the lake, looking at the scene in the distance. A strange luster flashed past his eyes. When he saw the Sword Ancestor again, perhaps he had already recovered his former majesty. At that time, he would definitely be able to know what his true strength was like, and the true power of the limitless sword arts would definitely appear in this world. Thinking about it, Su-Yun's heart was inexplicably filled with anticipation. Phew! He heaved a sigh of relief. Now that the Sword Ancestor had left, the matters here could be considered to have come to an end. Right now, it was best to quickly return to the kingdom of Ziyu and see how Empress Dowager Lu was doing. Thinking about it, Su-Yun turned and prepared to leave the mountains. Su-Yun, are you leaving? The Realm Master flew up into the sky and stood in front of Su-Yun. It's about time. The Sword Ancestor has left. It's time for me to leave as well. Su-Yun laughed. This time, I still have to thank Realm Master for your help. If not for Realm Master, Sword Ancestor would not have been able to recover so quickly. When the Realm Master heard this, she lowered her eyes and looked at the majestic mountains below. She softly said, "Many thanks. Some things can a single word of thanks make it even?" Su-Yun was startled. Su-Yun, you can go now, the Realm Master said indifferently. Realm Master, do you have something to say to me? Su-Yun felt that it was a little strange. It's the same whether I say it or not. Rather than that, I might as well not waste my breath. The Realm Master shook her head and said indifferently, Su-Yun, you should leave quickly and take care of your matters. The Realm Master was so shocked that she did not speak again, causing Su-Yun to be confused. Since she had already said that, Su-Yun did not waste any more time and immediately turned to leave. Realm Master looked at his departing figure, her pink lips moving slightly, as if she was saying something. I hope that when the time comes, don't disappoint the Wanhua realm. Chapter 9:15. With the return of the Sword Ancestor's soul, Su-Yun relaxed a little. Now, only Qing'er and the Immortal Seeking sect were left. After settling these two matters, the burden would be reduced by more than half. It would be nice to take some time to visit his parents and sister in the martial Imperial Palace. However, Su-Yun was still a little worried about the words of the Realm Master and Sword Ancestor. The upcoming turmoil. Even the Sword Ancestor was so serious, it was probably not a small matter. Su-Yun's face congealed, and in the end, he sighed a few times. Forget it. Let's just deal with it. Let's just take one step at a time. After leaving the Wanhua realm, Su-Yun went to the Master Subhoodie's place again. Of course, he did not forget to tell his master about the vigilance of the Sword Ancestor and the Realm Master, hoping that his master would pay attention to it and be on guard. Unexpectedly, when his master heard this, he smiled lightly and did not take it to heart. Su Yun thought that his master did not believe him, but when he asked, he found out that his master had already known about it. But this was the will of the heavens, and all he could do was to wait for it to arrive and then do his best to change it. After knowing about it, he panicked, but it was useless. His master's mentality made him feel a little ashamed. After bidding farewell to his master, he left the ultimate martial sacred plane and returned to the ultimate martial world. He had wasted a lot of time in the moon-chasing domain, so he was afraid that Empress Dowager Lu had already met with the people from the Heaven-Knocking Pavilion. Presumably, there should be news from the Heaven-Knocking Pavilion. The Beiyang was quite a distance away from the ultimate martial sacred plane. Time was of the essence, so he didn't have time to go to the Beiyang. With Su Yun's current cultivation, he did not need much time to rush to the Immortal Island. He would arrive in about half a day. Su Yun flew in the air and bumped into many spirit cultivators who were rushing on their way. His eyes and ears were astonishing, and he realized that the people on the way were all talking about the Martial Imperial Palace. He could vaguely hear them and did not know what had happened to the Martial Imperial Palace. At first, he did not pay much attention to it, but as more and more people talked about it, Su Yun could not help but become nervous. He immediately stopped a spirit cultivator and asked, "Fellow cultivator, I heard you say that the Martial Imperial Palace seemed to have been attacked by others. May I ask what exactly is going on?" The two spirit cultivators who were flying in the air and talking as they flew were shocked by Su Yun, who suddenly rushed over. Sensing that Su Yun did not have any ill intentions, the two of them calmed down. "Don't you know that the Martial Imperial Hall has been destroyed?" One of the spirit cultivator, who was dressed in a brown robe and had a buzz cut, looked at Su Yun and said, "Destroyed?" Su Yun's face turned pale. "How is that possible? What kind of strength did the Martial Imperial Hall possess? That was a power that could contend against the true devil sect. How could it be destroyed just like that? Where did you hear that rumor?" "Rumor? What rumors? This is the truth. In the entire ultimate martial world. Doesn't know. The Martial Imperial Palace was directly razed to the ground. Not even dregs were left. I say, you brat, it's up to you to believe it or not. We don't have the time to play around with you. Go away, go away." The buzzcut man was getting impatient. He shouted twice and was about to leave. "Don't go," Su Yun bellowed. He directly extended his hand towards the man and forcefully grabbed him. That person was shocked and wanted to resist, but found that no matter how much profound energy and strength he used, he couldn't break free from this fellow's hand. "You bastard. What are you trying to do?" The two of them were already hostile towards Su Yun. Su Yun suddenly pulled out a sword and waved it at the mountain below. Boom! A huge crack immediately appeared in the center of the mountain, and the entire mountain range was split in half. When the two of them saw this, they were so scared that their souls almost left their bodies. Only now did they realize that the guy in front of them was not a simple existence. "Lord, what other orders do you have? Please speak frankly. This lowly one will tell you everything I know." The buzzcut man said with his tongue curled up. "It's not something that will make things difficult for you." Su Yun said, "You just need to tell me everything you know about the Martial Imperial Hall." I'll say it. I'll say it all." The man hurriedly said, "The Martial Imperial Palace was attacked by a large number of immortals a few days ago, and the master of the Martial Imperial Palace, Shenwu Huang, was no match for the immortals. He had already fled. The Martial Imperial Palace was destroyed, and the people in the palace fled in all directions." Impossible. The more Su Yun heard, the more shocked he became, and the more his heart trembled. He stared blankly at the man and asked anxiously after a moment, "Do you know what happened to Shen Wu Huang's daughter and granddaughter?" "I'm not sure about that, but since Shen Wu Huang has escaped, they have most likely escaped as well. Right? Who attacked the Martial Imperial Hall?" Su Yun roared with red eyes. Seeing Su Yun's ferocious expression, the two of them were alarmed, their breathing hurried, and they were extremely afraid. "I'm not sure, my lord. I'm just a rogue cultivator. How could I know so many things?" "Let me go, my lord. That's all I know." "That's right, my lord. We've told you everything we know. If you want to know more, I'm afraid you'll have to ask someone else." The two of them said with trembling voices. Hearing the two of them say this, Su Yun's complicated state of mind forcefully calmed down. He let go of his hand and lowered his head in thought. The two of them looked at each other and hurriedly turned to flee. How could the martial imperial hall be destroyed out of nowhere? Su Yun's mind was in chaos. Something had happened to the martial imperial hall, and he didn't know how his parents were doing or how his sister was doing. He was anxious and wished that he could immediately rush to the martial imperial hall. However, he did not know how far away he was from the martial imperial hall, so even if he went now, it would be useless. Fortunately, Shun Wu Huang had escaped. If he had escaped, his parents might have escaped as well. Even if Shun Wu Huang was not a match for the immortals, he would at least be able to escape with his life. Furthermore, Shun Wu Huang valued relationships and righteousness, so it was impossible for him to abandon his family. If he wanted to know the safety of his parents, he had to find him now. Su Yun heaved a sigh of relief, his expression complicated and serious. Where did Shun Wu Huang escape to? The myriad heavens realm was so big. Looking for a person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Suddenly, Su Yun seemed to have thought of something and immediately took out a magic treasure from his storage ring. Wen Tian Bao Ling. He impatiently activated Bao Ling, and after a while, he heaved a sigh of relief. Although Bao Ling did not tell him the exact location of Su Xintian and Shun Shui Shui, it meant that the two of them were still alive. The boulder in his heart had finally been lifted. As long as his parents were safe and sound, the situation wouldn't be so bad. The sudden annihilation of the martial imperial hall was probably a sign. Su Yun frowned. After thinking for a moment, he immediately increased his speed and rushed towards the Purple Moon Immortal Island. Not long after, he entered the Immortal Island. He pushed his speed to the limit, and, as if he had teleported, he appeared in the Immortal Island Imperial Palace. Inside the bedroom, Empress Dowager Lu was standing in front of a golden bed. A middle-aged man was lying on the bed. His face was pale, his eyes were closed, and his entire body was sweating profusely. Four spirit cultivator S stood around the bed, and under the bed was a large formation. The four of them stood in four different directions of the formation. With their eyes closed, they lowered their heads and chanted. The surging energy surged towards the chest of the middle-aged man on the bed like seawater. Empress Dowager Lu looked at the person on the bed. Her face was expressionless, but a trace of sorrow flashed past her eyes. Empress Dowager Lu. At this moment, a sudden voice came out from behind him. Empress Dowager Lu's nerves tensed up. She immediately turned around, only to realize that Su Yun had unknowingly stood behind her. He didn't even know that the other party was close to him. Just what cultivation level was this fellow at? Empress Dowager Lu took a deep breath. She thought to herself, calmed herself down, and said, "So, it's Lord." The surrounding maids and servants were all shocked. Empress Dowager Lu stopped them in time and told them to leave. After they left, Su Yun said, "Are the people from the Heaven Knocking Pavilion here? We've already met, and I've done as you wish." Empress Dowager Lu said in a low voice, "What's the attitude of the Heaven Knocking Pavilion?" The Heaven Knocking Pavilion has decided to send people to the Immortal Seeking sect to demand an explanation. As for what will happen next, this old one does not know either. Empress Dowager Lu said, "Oh, just asking for an explanation." Hearing that, Su Yun could not help but be disappointed. He had thought that the people from the Heaven Knocking Pavilion would bring people to cause trouble at the Immortal Seeking sect, but he never thought that the people from the Heaven Knocking Pavilion would be so cowardly. The Immortal Seeking sect was a half-immortal sect, and they were a genuine immortal sect, so why would they be afraid of the Immortal Seeking sect? Su Yun felt bored. He secretly sighed, glanced at the person on the bed, and asked, "Who is this person?" Empress Dowager Lu hesitated for a moment, then said, "The king of the kingdom of Ziyu, my son." "Is that so?" Su Yun revealed a look of understanding. He looked at the person on the bed, then turned and walked out. Empress Dowager Lu watched him leave. After exiting the palace, Su Yun flew to an empty corner and waved his hand. In an instant, a few blood-red figures quietly appeared in front of him. These people were the blood demon guards. They knelt on one knee with their heads lowered. Their expressions were incomparably devout, not daring to make the slightest disrespect. Is what Empress Dowager Lu said consistent with your investigation? Suyin asked in a deep voice. Reporting to Lord Devil Lord, is indeed so. The people from the heaven-knocking pavilion and Empress Dowager Lu were discussing this matter in the main hall. Once the discussion was over, the people from the heaven-knocking pavilion immediately left. A blood demon guard replied, "It seems like the heaven-knocking pavilion doesn't care about the lives of these immortals." Su Yun said, in this subordinate's opinion, even if the heaven-knocking pavilion really brings people to the immortal-seeking sect, I'm afraid that the two sects will not be able to cause a ruckus, because the immortal-seeking sect is currently preparing to deal with our true devil realm. They will only try their best to avoid enmity with the heaven-knocking pavilion. The blood demon guard said. Su Yin nodded, feeling that it was very reasonable. If these two sects could not cause a ruckus, then the true devil sect would still be in an extremely dangerous situation. This was not what Su Yin wanted. He rubbed his chin and slowly thought. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.